Good everything, y'all. Hey,
Good
good
everything.
for the crack of dawn for those of you on the West Coast. Hello, and those of you in Brazil and London, it's a nice time for you.
Yes.
And for the rest of y'all everywhere in between, hello. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Dr. Carr.
Hey, Professor Hunter, how are you? Good everything.
I am good in everything, and I know
Yes.
some people are triggered right now because they don't see any books behind you, but it'll be all right. Y'all will be
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, it's okay.
It's like the word of God. It's in you. You don't need to
No,
demonstrate.
you know, I brought a few. I couldn't not bring nothing, so I had to bring something because we got to work. So yeah, I had to come up the road. We have a meeting. There's a regular convening called the Black Family Summit, and we're here. It's a lot of African-centered organizations from around the country who meet and plan and debrief and see how we can support each other. So myself and Dr. Beatty up here, we in Baltimore, and with Baba Leonard Dunston. I don't know if you ever crossed paths with Leonard Dunston. For the better part of 20 years, he ran the state of New York Office of Children and Family Services. He's a licensed social worker. He actually got his social work at Hunter. He's retired now, Livingstone grad. He's president emeritus of the National Association of Black Social Workers. Baba Lynn, he makes the call and we all come. In fact, Black social workers have named their social work institute for him. He was
Wow.
founded. So
That's
yeah,
wild. I used to cover child welfare. I covered it when
oh,
a little 6-year-old Elisa Izquierdo was killed by her mother's boyfriend, and uh, 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 they brought in this guy who used to be in child welfare. He ended up being fired commissioner too, and I got really close with him. But that was in the '90s. Wow. So
he might you, and then you probably know him,
took
kind of
over.
chocolate colored brother. He has a
No, I'm saying
nonprofit.
after that, I kind of moved away from the Daily News. So
Oh yeah,
paths crossed. So he probably took over after. Uh,
Dunston was there in the Cuomo. Who was the governor at the time?
oh, then he predates that. Then he was
Oh
there.
yeah, no, he old school. Yeah,
Okay,
Baba Lynn is in his
all right.
80s
That's
now.
the '80s. Yeah,
Yeah, no, he's a
Let
straight
me come in.
pioneer.
Okay, all
This
right.
this dude and traveled about 4 or 5 continents. He's got three, four
Wow.
hundred awards. When he was in Benin, was it Benin or Guinea, where they made him like honorary head of state? Leonard Dunston's one of them dudes who, in the governance structure, you say his name, the right people will be, oh wow, you Leonard Dunston, yeah. I mean, but to white people, they know him as the man that put the hammer down when he was over New York State. He didn't play that. So that generation before us, really, those
Okay.
Negroes that plowed the field so that Deion Sanders can go to Colorado. You know what I'm saying? We're going to talk about one of them today. In other words, that's not the generation that we're from. This is the generation before us. He's from that generation. So we just glad to be here. And a lot of Nubians are here because and Cobra folks are here. Aztec people are here. It's just, and this reach. Oh my goodness. I mean, the plan is just, whew,
It's
our people are
us, right?
coming.
I mean, remember that commercial with the lady with the shampoo, and then you tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and the screen kept populating. That's how I imagine this
Awesome.
place. Y'all go tell two friends. It's the season. Go give two gifts. Like
Yes.
let's populate narrative in Nubia with the people that about building something. Um,
Yeah, and it's really something too in terms of how the world, as you say, there's a summit in D.C. this weekend. The African leaders, most of the countries on the continent are represented either by their heads of state or senior elected officials or cabinet officials are in D.C. for this big convening the United States has put together, which is a beautiful thing for the social structure. They trying to drop the hammer on these continental Africans, and of course, ain't nobody in Africa picked a side in this Ukraine war, and the United States not gonna make them. But then there's this whole counter conference, and I really, really tried to figure out how I could get down there. And of course, everybody wants the Nubia John Henry Clark join because the Eastern region of the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations is having their annual John Henry Clark tribute this afternoon, but it's virtual, so I'm gonna be able to go there at 3 this afternoon. But I started to say that I can't get back to DC this afternoon for the counter summit because the people around the country and around the world organizing a kind of protest summit for this meeting of African heads of state with the United States government. And I'm cracking up because the university I work at, Howard, is hosting all these events that are partnered with the United States side, which is, of course, on brand. And they think they're doing the right thing, and God bless them. But the tensions that are there, and here we are in this space, build it out, building out. And it's almost like that non-aligned movement. We with the people. We with the black family, we with the black nation, we with the black country. So these institutions, either you're going to get right or you're going to get left behind. Britney Griner, did you see Britney Griner this week? I know you talked about it. Now, I was listening in back and forth on Sirius, but what did you think about that video where they edited out when she shook hands with Victor Boot? I mean, y'all think we stupid? Did you see that? They walking up to each other. They goes like this.
Literally, yes.
No, but she went like this, and then the next thing she's over there. Like, wait, what just happened? Oh, you shook hands with him. Because the first guy embraced him. The person from the U.S. shook hands. Then she went like this. Next thing you know, she 4 feet in the other way. Why did y'all do that? Why don't y'all? Oh, because you want to make her something she's not. Britney Griner is a basketball player. She don't know nothing about the Merchant of Death. She don't know about the fact that he cut his eye teeth in Afghanistan, or that he met his wife in Johannesburg and took her from another man who he's down there doing arms deal with. She don't know the fact that he sold arms to Unita and Jonas Savimbi and killed a bunch of Africans in Angola, and then turned around and armed everybody in the damn biggest war in Africa that killed more people in the world since World War II in Congo. She don't know about what he did in Rwanda and Burundi. She don't know about what he did and gave guns to Charles Taylor and them, and there's plenty of people dead in Liberia and Sierra Leone. She don't know nothing about that. She knows she got caught up with some she's oil. She happened to be going home, and then she went to shake the man's hand. We don't know nothing about it. This amazes me. Two things can be true at the same time. We could be glad that sister is back, and we could be like, what the hell did y'all, this man done killed more black people on both sides, on all sides, and y'all set him up in Thailand when he was going to Colombia to do another deal. And you know how much dope is on the streets of the United States because of these wars that came out of the FARC and the damn Colombians that y'all been backing the whole time? And the biggest arms deal in the world is the United States. So him being in jail didn't stop no guns being sold. But this ain't about that. They in the streets now. Putin is celebrating. You know how big a propaganda win that was for them? We traded a basketball player for the guy that we told y'all was coming back. F the United States. What are we going to do about this, Professor Hunter? I guess nothing.
Listen, and I mean, I'm just the ignorant rhetoric, because I'm just learning all of this in class with Carr, as always, right?
Well, together. Well, you saw Lord of War with Nicolas Cage, right? That was Boot, Victor Boot.
Did not know that, because the narrative is, he killed Americans.
Of course, always, because Americans are humans. Ain't nobody else human.
Right. And that's why people are mad that Britney is home, because they don't see her as American.
Isn't that something?
Jean-Pierre said, well, you traded a basketball player. She said she was an American. She's an American, and that's not resonating because they don't see her as an American. But the other part of it is you left a Marine there. Trump left a Marine there. He got captured under Trump. Why didn't Trump bring him home?
And a Marine with a little, with not the best record. I mean, quiet.
Well, he got dishonorably discharged from the Marines for stealing $10,000. He has a passport for Canada, from Ireland, from England, from America. So he's got. And they holding him as a spy. And what I know, not just Karine Jean-Pierre, what she said, but they weren't going to let him go. So we either had a choice to get no one home, or to get Britney home in exchange for this guy who was already in jail for 12 years. He wasn't going to be in jail for life. He had a 20-something year sentence. He was going to be out in 4 or 5 years anyway.
That's right.
So yes, we let a whole ass murderous person leave this country, but they weren't going to make any swap. That Marine was never coming home. And if you cared that much, you didn't hear Pete during Trump's administration when he was captured. So, and what about the Taliban leader that Trump let out, along with 10,000 other Taliban that are literally killing Americans? So you either care about America, you don't care about America. I know you don't care about Africans. So that shouldn't even be, you shouldn't be mad about this arms deal if all he killed was a bunch of Africans and others.
Yeah. Here or abroad. Because apparently Britney Griner is an African too, since
oh yes.
You don't care about none of us nowhere. Isn't that something?
It's weird, so last week we talked briefly about emancipation, and I started watching it and I turned it off like after 10 minutes. Damn it.
Wait a minute, you too?
Yes, I turned it off.
You too? I got 10 minutes in and it's get off the porch. I'm done.
Do it.
Because I love that kind of stuff. Because That's the kind of thing where you see that and you be like, what the hell was I thinking? We're not ever talking to these people. Hell no. See, this is the problem with memory. When you remember, you start acting right. I'm not, no, hell no. What did he say? How far did you get in, bro?
All right, so the feet washing. I was like, oh, this nice.
Mm-hmm.
They praying, babies. It's all and then they come
little
together.
governance, little cultural meaning making, little ways of knowing.
I was like,
That's very, yes.
you show tenderness. Yes, we were
No
human.
question.
We had family. We love God. I was like,
we did each other.
okay.
That's right.
They snatched him. He wasn't going. He fight. We fight back. Okay. I can get with the fighting back, and I'm gonna bite you and all this stuff. I'm rip the boards off. That you not just gonna snatch me up. I'm a man. I could walk.
Right.
The heads on the pipes. I was like, okay, this gonna be. I was like, this gonna be too much.
Oh wait, but the gun to her head.
The gun to her head, but then
you know how many times they pulled that trigger. See, that's what I'm saying. I'm sitting there looking like, yeah, I'm gonna wipe all y'all out intellectually, culturally, but there will be no peace because there are many times that cracker pulled that trigger. And by cracker, I'm not using that as an epithet. I'm saying the poor white, the overseer, that the man standing out there that said, you called Jeff Davis. Yeah, right. Exactly. The whip cracker. In other words, this is a class structure. And that white man stood out there in the yard and said, yeah, next don't text me again. I'll come down there and talk to Jeff Davis himself. That nigga's the best blacksmith I have. Yeah, that's the class structure within whiteness. But guess what? Not my business, because I'm against all y'all. The one with the gun, the one with the checkbook, and the one over the Confederacy. Cut all their heads off and switch them out with the ones on the pikes. And that's when you know we mean business. Frankly, not run up down no damn sidelines for y'all cheering at a Colorado basketball game. Are you crazy? No, I'm sorry. Not your fault. Not your fault. What did Woodson call it? The sequel to slavery. This is not over. So there's a problem. Say, well, that was then. Is it? Was it? This is how you get a Britney Griner. This is how you get a Deion Sanders. We are not people. We are property. This here is the fastest cornerback I got. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. The best blacksmith I got. In other words, you work for me. You're not human. How do you snatch that man from his wife and his children? And then what does it do to the children, bro? What did it do to those children's children? What did it do to their children's children? What did it do to us then? Who don't remember the circumstance? All we remember is the fear. Don't go outside. Don't say anything to the police. Be quiet. Don't speak back. Don't just be quiet. Mm-mm. And then when we do buck, we put all the expectations on somebody that buck to be the hero for the rest of us. This is This is what Amos Wilson called it. This is black on black violence in service of white domination. I saw the streets of Baltimore last night. How do we talk to each other? I must have seen 50 police around this hotel, right around Baltimore Avenue. I went over to get a cup of coffee. It's midnight because I'm gonna go get some coffee. And all the people out, they all up and down. Must be some clubs right here. But y'all in Baltimore, y'all know what I'm talking about, right here in the harbor. And all the police standing out there. And you already know. All I'm thinking is, I know enough about Baltimore to know, and I know what people think they know from watching The Wire. And I'm like, that's the Baltimore Police Department. These the patty rollers. And like you, I had to turn it off. Because these your great-great-grandsons out here in this street. So you turned it off. When are you going back?
I'm not. I made a decision.
Wait a minute, what?
I made a decision. I can't do it. I can't. And I'm very clear about where we are in history. We were just talking about that before we came on. I'm very clear about what's around the corner. I'm very clear about what needs to happen next. Very clear about who needs to figure this out and come on and stop playing. And I'm like, okay, you said this was a freedom story, but it's not a freedom story because you start with the trauma and the fear that is epigenetically in us. And we know what happens when you step out of line, Tiffany Cross or whomever, when you don't do exactly, Karen Hunter, what we tell you to do or what we expect you to do, because it's not even spoken anymore. No. When you say the things and you're actually free, and then Kyrie put on his shoes, I am free. But we don't even know what freedom looks like, Dr. Carr. So
no. Well, yes,
not all of us.
It looks like what we're doing right now.
Right.
Because the thing they're
collectively.
Well, the thing they're not talking about, of course, and I don't know, maybe they will. I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt because I've seen some reviews that are calling it a superhero movie because ain't no black people escaped from slavery twice, 3 times. So people don't know the history. But maybe they'll gesture toward the Maroons.
I was going to say, why don't they do like multiple series on Maroons? Because there's
Can't do that.
many. There's not just Nanny and them. There were many in America.
In Louisiana.
That white folk couldn't do nothing about.
That's right.
Why don't we see those stories? Now that to me is uplifting, and it should be called "I Wish You Would." You know, I wish you would.
Please come out here in the swamp.
Right, like that. That to me seems like something we should see more frequently than the person that has to go through barbed wire and unthinkable odds to be free, as opposed to people that just said, "I wish you would," and everyone was like, "You can't go over there."
You can't, right? And we don't speak about that. Yeah, we don't speak about that over there because if we pretend it's not there, but we talk it all the time. Well, that's why highly, Greenman has been working for the last 20 years on his documentary. He's got so much footage. I mean, he got footage from Oklahoma, from Rackettville, Texas. Then he go into Mexico and come back into Texas, then go back to Oklahoma. They were at a Maroon meeting where the Colombians came up, the Afro-Colombians, to talk about Maroonage. And they are in Oklahoma talking about this. One of the main people doing the talking was this young activist out of Colombia. She's now the vice president. He's got Marquez on tape when she was in the streets in the United States talking about Maroonage, because that's what they were doing. So in other words, the social structure can't talk about that because that would give us ideas. That's the momentum of memory. And right there in Louisiana, I mean, every Mardi Gras, them Louisiana Negroes tell you that's where the Mardi Gras Indians came from. The Mardi Gras Indians are the Maroons. It's the Native Americans of Louisiana and the Africans that escaped, and that's why they dress up like Indians in the Mardi Gras. That's the Crews with a K. The Crews are the Maroons. And they all down there throwing beads. That's why when Louis Armstrong was made king of the Zulu in the Zulu parade, and people clowned him because he had blackface on, he was like, yeah, that's the convention, but y'all don't know nothing about this parade right here. It was the dream of my life to be made king of the Zulus. The Zulu parade is the Mardi Gras Indians. That's the Maroons. Y'all don't know about Louis Armstrong. Y'all think you know him because you see him play that horn. You don't know nothing about it. And they can't make no movie about that. You make a movie about that, the kids like, what? We resisted? Not only did we resist, we won. We here, ain't we? And guess what? That fleur-de-lis that y'all wearing, New Orleans Saints, the fleur-de-lis, that flower is, you think it's Mary, the merger. That's the flower of Aset. That's ISIS. You got ISIS name on your head and don't know nothing about it. Get away from us. But we gonna remember, and we remember it's over for you. We gonna remember that gun to that sister's head too. Why? Because you don't pay for that. They paying for it today. This is where they pay for it. By us ignoring them. Well, we think we don't care what you think. And we ain't argue with you no more. God bless Tiffany Cross. God bless Jason Johnson. God bless Jonathan Capehart. God bless Joy Reid. This ain't that. This ain't that. And the stronger this gets, the more they'll leave them alone. Why? They'll be relieved to have them over there. And the more they get a little bass in their voice. Why? Because guess what? Look, what they're not saying is the reason Negroes turned up like that wasn't just to run randomly through barbed wire and try to find the Union Army. They knew there was something out there they could get to. Yeah, that's why when they escaped to the Maroon place, the people would come back and not speak of it. Why? Oh, what happened to so-and-so? We caught him. That's a lie. They got away. They got away, didn't they? And that's why y'all don't want to talk about it no more. They ain't running to the Union Army. Carr G. Woodson uncle ran to the Union Army, came back with the army and whipped the slave master. Why don't y'all make a movie out of that? That happened for real. 1943, Negro History Bulletin, my recollection of veterans of the Civil War. He lays it all out. Just take it, put the words in the damn script, and tell it. Oh, you can't do that. Why? It's too much. Because you believe Negroes is good for running and dancing and jumping. And if they get out of line, you break them. But it's all right. Because we don't woke up now. I think that's why that Dion thing hit such a rawness for us. And look, I guess we got a little ahead of that, didn't we?
Yes.
Last week.
I mean, you've been talking about it. So that was the other.
No, we've been talking about it.
Yeah, you predicted this would happen, months ago. So, you did. And, it. And again, there's a lot of opinions, and that's fine. You can have a visceral reaction to it and strong feelings. But if it's not grounded in actual facts, history, it's just an utterance, and we should stop uttering. Let's have knowledge.
You be right there. You be putting bars.
I'm just saying we should talk based on stuff we know, not just stuff we feel. Feelings are things, right? They're not reliable. I promise you. And you could choose how you feel about a thing too, which is the other amazing thing about being a human being. You can choose to be outraged and upset, and you could choose to be happy. You have choices. But knowledge is here, and you can choose to accept it or not, or read a book, as Van Lathan would say. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Carr. You got further than I did. I'm seeing.
No. I lingered. You got to the heads on pikes.
Yes. Okay. You didn't get to the heads on pikes.
He got into the wagon,
and you were done.
Started moving, and I'm like, see, if I keep going, this is what we're gonna talk about.
Okay.
And I think, to me, everything is in divine order, as you say. This space, this Nubia space, this narrative space in that broader context, and then being able then to share that with people who have not yet come into that very clear maroon space, into that peripheral space. It's almost like when we release this out into the broader valences, that would almost be like releasing it out into those plantations. But we're in the dismal swamp. Now, we don't mind sharing this because, of course, we've got the maroon place that is sacrosanct. And we know people are coming, and they have been coming. We know the numbers, we know the people, we hear the conversation. But divine order.
Divine order.
It's divine order because last week was just before our brother made his announcement. This week is after the SWAC championship and the announcement and all around. Everybody got an opinion. And then next week is a celebration bowl. And so for the first time in our 2.5+ years, we have a sequence that has emerged organically. And I want to just publicly, not that he'll ever hear it, and that's fine, but thank Deion Sanders. Thank him. Thank him. I absolutely think this is in divine order. I'm not thinking about it in a Christian way of knowing. I almost think, Deion's playing the role of, whether he knows it or not, he's Eshu. Mm-hmm. Eshu in the Yoruba.
Is that the trickster?
Yeah.
Okay. I learned that.
Mr. Anansi, as you said, I heard you talking about Anansi last week.
Because I had Orlando Jones was on.
Yeah, you had to correct the sister had the lane wrong. I was laughing.
Yeah, Orlando was on. I love him because he's another brother that reads, and I don't care who he's married to. Y'all get caught up in the wrong things. First of all, that sweatshirt that you're wearing, you can only get it in Narrative. And Narrative is the repository. It's our Alexandria, library. It's where we collect everything. Every in class with Carr, most of them are annotated. We have all of the resources, the bookstores, all of the Black bookstores are more than 300. It is where all of the classes are archived, every single class, all of the classes from Maroon's medicine chest to the meta-netra classes. And you can take them at your own pace, do all of the work, the groundwork. You can listen on audio. That's Narrative. Narrative is the library. Nubia,
even as you're sharing it with other people, because you and Sunyata talking about that tea last week on Sirius, I had to stop. I'm trying to grade paper. What? Just the knowledge, and that's just a little clip. Like you said, all of it's in the other place.
I'm sprinkling seasoning here, bringing it over there. Just getting a palate, because if you're not used to vegetables or different kinds of spices and curry and cayenne and stuff, you're gonna reject it. So I'm just sprinkling a little bit here, bringing it a little bit over here. But if you are really about the deep dive, you're gonna go to Narrative and learn and get your whole life. Newbie is where we convene. It's not Twitter. It's where the folk who have gotten the knowledge, they come. There's a lot of shenanigans. It's fun, especially in the Karen Up the Show chat.
Oh, no question.
It'd be lit. People are having a lot of fun, which is good. We should have joy, and it's not all stiff academics. There's a lot of character.
No question.
Because we're individuals. We got fingerprints. We're gonna come as our full selves into this space and make it even bigger. So that's Nubia, but you can only get that sweatshirt in the store Narrative, because that's it. Yeah, we honor our folk. But I'm sorry, I just had to make that through line, because there are people that when we bring these things up, they don't know what we're talking about because they only come on YouTube, so they're like,
which is, listen, I can't tell you. It's a through line that has to be made, because people don't know, and now you know. You don't know, now you know. And there are people, whether you don't have the means or you haven't quite figured out if you want to now. But we are building, and I think what has been the most essential has been this way that is very organic in terms of even the structure. That's really one of to say a few words about today in the context of as it emerged since last Saturday to now. This context of almost a 3-part conversation. So last week we kind of entered the space. This week I want to keep going to that space and talk about this kind of point of entry, this Deion Sanders moment as it relates to the most important thing, the question that you added, Prof, from Sonia Sanchez, how do it free us? And then next week, really want to sit with this idea of how we situate how we do we, because there is no natural we. There's a we built that's based on the trauma. There's we based on the commonalities of cultures and the kind of not the same, but shared sensibilities, ways of knowing, cultural meaning making. But the we is hard work to build. And that's our task. That's our honor. That's our job. But as you say, that through line is critical. It's essential. And that has been, in that essential word, I think the most important thing. We often say in terms of Africana that the beautiful thing is to hold a mirror up, is for each of us to see each other and help each other see ourselves. So even as you and Dr. Allen were talking last week, and not even last week, a couple of days ago, when you were talking about how you and your father took your tea and how he would load it up with sugar and with cream and with milk. And then you gradually began to wean yourself out of that sweetness. But in the moments that you shared publicly, the conversation wasn't just about tea. It was about that relationship you had with your father and what y'all were doing while you were drinking the tea. I mean, that's a teaching moment. And then what that does is one of the things it does is elicits from us, from the rest of us, our memories of those governance relationships, those protocols, as Angie Porter would say. And those protocols then allow us to see ourselves as full beings, not just as individuals, but as part of communities. And that is really the work. The work isn't to tell people what to do. The work is to help people recognize that you know what to do. You know what to do by having experienced things that are not what to do. And you know what to do by experiencing things that make you realize this is what I should do. And we have to trust that. So our job is to displace the structure that was imposed on us, that has us mistake ourselves for figments of other people's imagination. Because that's what the West has done. That's what European societies and civilizations have done, and societies, not civilizations, over the course of the last several hundred years. They've imposed a way of being in the world so that we might look at, no shade to Meghan and Harry.
I was.
So what you thinking about? Look, we on the same vibe, right?
I was just gonna.
The queen of my house is my mama. I don't know nothing about no Meghan or her mother-in-law. What the hell what y'all worry about them two for?
We are getting a peek into how ridiculous it is. She's talking about, well, okay, because she actually is raised by a Black mama, and going into your grandmother's house, I got a curtsy to your grandmother, because some people are like, that's irreverent, but from where we come from, that's your grandmother. What? Nobody's watching. There are no cameras on, and I still got to do this. That's weird, Well, that's
or not. Right. We have our own protocols, because you wouldn't go and stand up over your husband or your wife's grandmother in her house. There wouldn't be a curtsy, but you damn sure ain't gonna stand up over her. And then we got protocols too.
That's true.
So my thing is, I'm saying, so I understand coming in with the elder, but I'm trying to figure out why we would somehow get so caught up in them two lives instead of going to interview our elders. But I know why, because they have superimposed their structures on us, and so we're more invested in these people than we are in ourselves. No wonder you don't escape. You're trying to get in the plantation. You ain't trying to leave it. All you want to do is get in the house. Could I just get in the house? Okay, if I can't get in the house, would you at least come out here and tell us about what's going on in the house? It's like them white baby dolls they used to give Black children at Christmas. Every year you get the same pasty white face, the baby doll, and then you wonder why the people, or in South Africa, where you put all the images of whiteness, and then you have a Black man say, if you want to understand something, trust Black women. Okay, yes, exactly right. I agree with you, Trevor. You're exactly right. And I know that you trust Black women. you know, and then you go home.
I have to leave for that one.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, go home. I mean, hey, so if you trust black women,
Wait, keep going.
I ain't mad at him. I'm saying he's right. He's absolutely right. I wish he would take his own advice. I mean, he's right.
Oh
He's
my
right.
God. So what is that? You know, and I
You
struggle.
know what it is.
You know, I want to say, Dr. Carr, I want to say, you know, people should love whoever they want to love.
Agree.
But the contradiction and the hypocrisy that out of your mouth, you don't even, it doesn't even ring. You know, watching the griot thing and Byron Allen sitting there and I'm celebrating blackness.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
oh, wait a minute, the griot, you talking about the Byron Allen?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. You spend a whole lot of money to bring them people. Anytime you see Pat LaBelle stand up somewhere and then all them people, it's like, how much did you pay for these people?
Tyler Perry.
Your name in their mouth.
All of the celebration of blackness. And I'm like, well, who you love though? Who you love? It's, I don't know what, you know, what should we feel? And I don't want to, you know, talk about somebody's personal life because what you do in your bedroom is your business. But is it? I don't know. So this is, can you help me?
It is until you start.
I have personal opinions about it, of course. You know, we all have our opinions.
Yeah.
But, you know, what should we do with those opinions? Because the powerfulness of what he said was absolutely true.
Yeah, it was until up to the point.
Right. So what does that mean? What do you not, is there a cognitive dissonance of like you don't see yourself when you're opening your mouth to say these things? When you celebrate black, we're doing this for black people, but all my money's going to a white woman when I die. And that will pass for white. Everything.
I mean, again, I'm not mad. I mean, you know, the beautiful thing about us, what we're doing here and what we're joining in terms of an unbroken genealogy of doing this. We're not the first to do this. It's an honor to be in a space that is joining those spaces that have always existed. The beauty is that we don't really worry about those things. Okay. We think about them, we talk about them, and we go on. I mean, you know, hey, I think Trevor Noah is funny. I mean, I don't watch The Daily Show, but then I don't watch stuff. I mean, I'll watch Roy and then come on. I'll skip down. You know, I'll see. Obviously, I saw that clip, but I have to heavily curate that because you only have 24 hours in a day. And a lot of us get stuck in it. I don't watch MSNBC. I mean, I watched enough last week, you know, and I saw the clips of Van Jones. I mean, I know Van since he was in undergrad at Vanderbilt. Van, my brother, best friend. They had a black newspaper in Nashville. Black newspaper. They started the Third Eye. So I've been knowing Van since he had an afro. So I mean, my point is
very, very black.
No question.
You know, I'm gonna do this thing for black people. And
black no question. I mean, and I ain't mad at Van. I ain't mad at none of them. Do you? We understand. That's not a problem. But I mean, you know, the challenge is the more we know, the more we don't need to be concerned. I mean, a guy like Trevor Noah, you know, when you read his, what is it, Born a Crime? I got at the house. I took an hour and kind of thumbed it. I mean, it's not heavy reading. So, you know, you get a sense. But let's be very clear. Those of you who are in South Africa, those of the fam that are in South Africa, we know South Africa. In fact, you know, we know elections are coming up in 24. Cyril Ramaphosa almost resigned last week because they caught him with like $600,000 in cash stuffed in a couch on one of his farms. And he said, I mean, you know, Ramaphosa is the guy who they wanted to follow Mandela, but he got skipped in the line. He went out and became a millionaire. I mean, there's a whole story there, but the story I want to get to is the generation that Ramaphosa was born into, the current president of South Africa. Between Nelson Mandela and Cyril Ramaphosa is Steve Biko in them. And so the Black consciousness movement in South Africa, I mean, you know, folks who study Black consciousness movement would tell you, you know, Biko and them were saying blackness is not skin color, it's a consciousness. And so what they set up in South Africa was, as we know, this tripartite system. You got white people at the center, you got black people on the periphery, the majority of people in the world, and then between the black people, the Bantu people, and the white people, you had shades of whiteness. That's the colored population, whether it be Cape Malay, whether it be, you know, the indigenous people who, you know, then they start saying, well, you know, can you stick a pencil in your hair? Is the pencil gonna fall out? If the pencil fall out, if you do that, we're gonna put you in another category. What's the broadness of your nose? What's the whole, you know, all this kind of foolishness. Well, Trevor Noah fits in the middle category, somewhere in that range. His blackness is a political blackness in some ways. I think he would be categorized as that, but he ain't that black. Remember when Colin Powell made that joke, I ain't that black. Well, you know, how are you defining black? And who are the we that is defining the black? I'm not mad at Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah grew up in a society where there was a penalty to being black. So when he says, I trust black women like my mother, my auntie, yeah, them black people. Black people, meaning what? You black in South Africa, that means something different. You are not white and you are not colored. Trevor Noah born a crime because of interracial marriage, but as he is born, he ain't that black in that society. And that's fine. He jokes about it, he talks about it, and I give a brother 100% credit for his observations and for his experiences because those are his experiences. Now, who he chooses to sleep with, love, whatever gender, whatever race, so to speak, because there ain't one race, humanity, but whatever choices he makes, that's a consequence of his upbringing and the decisions and his socialization and his choices in the context of it. So he chooses to do that. But I think the more we know about the societies, the social structures we live in, the easier it is to understand perhaps the field of experience out of which individuals make choices. White is the most desirable thing in the modern world. People want white when it don't make no sense. That don't make no sense. Yes, it does. In a white world? Are you kidding? So people saying, well, he couldn't find no black woman. Of course he could have found any black woman he wanted. Well, why would you pick a black woman in a world of whiteness? Black people didn't get you that job on the Daily Show. That was white benevolence, and white people, saw your talent and took you. White people didn't give you this world. White people didn't let you create a space that was so powerful that you can walk away from it because you ain't really walking away. You're just moving into another valence. I'm not mad at your brother. I'm not mad at him because, what would that do for what we're doing? See, what we're doing has space to build, and out of that space, we understand. And what has been, to me.
So the question always should be, how do it free us? Which is where we always land, and some of us get stuck in that, right? So I'm gonna chew up the meat, spit out the bones type of person. So it's like, all right, yes, in my mind, it doesn't, 1 and 1 is not equaling 2. Okay, I'm gonna put that over there. I'm gonna receive the goodness. Okay, because that makes sense. And then I'm gonna discard the hypocrisy and the thing that is not congruent or that doesn't quite line up. Is that how we should, if it don't free us, should we be? And my thing is, I'm not dating him. So, you know what I'm saying? It's like, who dates this? Okay.
Right.
All right.
And I appreciate the teachable moment.
Yeah.
Because, when you say that, and we say, yeah, then you show a picture, you be like, huh? No. Yeah. So what does that tell you? It tells you that even after all that, whiteness is a hell of a drug. In other words, you can't even walk in that truth. And the fact that you ask yourself, we have to ask ourselves, even, I think, another question. Why do you have to trust black women over everybody else? What is the social structure that would make you make a statement like that we would recognize as a statement that is more reliable than not? But if you trust black women, if that is your default position, if you want to understand society, you should ask a black woman first, give your rationale. He gave his rationale. And what was his rationale? Whiteness. Huh? What does that mean? Well, that means that the reason you trust black women is because the system is so oppressive that at the core of that, at the periphery of blackness, on the periphery of whiteness, at the core of that oppression is black women, because black women can't afford, as he said, to F around and find out. That's right. Why can't black women not afford to F around and find out? Because if we are going to go into the future as human beings, then females are more often than not more responsible for ensuring that the species goes on. So when he says you can't F around and find out, yeah, because your mama couldn't F around and find out. You had to be protected, you had to be raised, you had to be educated and fed and housed and clothed. And regardless of what your daddy was doing, in the ideal world, it would be a unit. But guess what? If it ain't an ideal world, your mom can't just walk away. And so that's absolutely right. And when you put race in the middle of that, it becomes an impossible task for women. So then the question becomes, so what do we do about it? How does it free us? Well, it free us by staying together and making sure that black women don't have to bury that role alone. No, that we build community. So what you think about that, Trevor? You're absolutely right. Okay. See you tomorrow. Wait for it. Okay, so it was rhetorical for you. The rhetoric was right. This is what Marimba Ani would call in her book Yoruba and her work generally, the rhetorical ethic. Meaning what? The thing you've said is true, but the behavior doesn't match the thing you said, which is fine, unless you have a way of knowing and an expectation that the thing you say and the thing you do are supposed to match. And that is absolutely at the center of the idea of speech, whether it be the Medu in ancient Egyptian, whether it be the Jali in West Africa, Burkina Faso, as we talked about Hampate Ba, Jali meaning blood. When this person speaks out of memory, we must listen because their only job is to be accurate. And like blood in the body, the speech of someone whose job is to preserve the memory is to make sure that the body of the people continues to live through circulating the memory. The memory is the blood of a community. Memory is the blood of a community. That's why they call it Jali. Jali literally translates as B-L-O-O-D, blood. Parenthetically, footnote, Byron and everyone else. Griot means storyteller. Y'all can drop that French word now. Griot don't mean blood. I mean, I understand it's cute and it got us a little closer, but there's going to be at some point you got to reject the speech of your master if you really want to get to the thing you meant, because that is a beautiful concept. The Jali is blood. And so Jolly don't make it into the mouths in Brooklyn and Queens and Manhattan. Don't make it to Long Island. Don't make it to Staten Island. But when somebody look at you and say, word is bond, that means what I say and what I do supposed to be the same thing. So Trevor's right, rhetorically. And who knows? He may end up right the other place too. But what your mama did for you, one day, if you have some biological children, hopefully your partner will do for y'all's children. And if she black or not, if that is the function, then, you know, the lesson you learn from your mom or your auntie goes on, albeit in a way that some of us might say, but if it goes on, it goes on. And so, you know, again, here's the question as it relates to that. Again, this whole notion, and I'm glad you framed it in terms of through line, bro. Because the through line that unites all of what we're doing, not trying to do, what we're doing, the through line is we. The through line is us. The through line is the thing that allows us to validate anything we talk about by reflecting on our own lives and then sharing those reflections. Let's get very concrete about that. You know, the center of the framework that we have been walking with together and building out and developing this Africana Studies framework. And I'm calling it Africana Studies because that's where it emerged, but its ultimate objective is to walk away from the academy. This isn't a, you know, we talk about things being academic, but we work very hard to center this work we're doing in we. What does that mean very specifically? Well, that means that even now, here we are, as we always are, and we discuss topics, bring up some points, and then all of we participates. So when we look at the chat in Nubia, people begin to connect the things we're talking about to the things they remember and experience from their communities, from your experiences, your memory. And as our memory strengthens, we unblock those passages. It's the equivalent of cleaning out the arteries, cleaning out the capillaries so that the blood circulates. We ain't gonna have no strokes. We're gonna live a long time. In fact, we're gonna live forever if we circulate the memory, the momentum of memory, the momentum of blood. So when this releases and folks are watching on YouTube, and we look at the chat on Nubia and then the comments on YouTube, people, as we bring up topics, we're gonna do this in a minute. When it comes to Dion Sanders piece, again, I'm grateful to SU because SU sits at the crossroads. SU sits there so that you can't stay at the crossroads. You got to make a choice. And our brother, Deion Sanders, our brother, Coach Prime, however you want to call himself, is SU. SU is a disruptor. Deion Sanders himself calls himself a disruptor. He felt some kind of way. I saw him on a little, Facebook Live trying to answer questions. What about my life? Hey, bro, ain't nobody mad at you. You SU. You don't get mad at SU. You make a choice. But in making that choice, and we talk about it today, we're going to bring up some examples, and the genius of our people is revealed by our experiences. That's how you test whether a thing is true or not. What is your experiences? And then as you share your experiences, how do we connect? How do we say, oh, okay, that's interesting. I don't know about that. Oh yeah, but I had a similar, and then we begin to sort through and we build a we, because the we doesn't exist outside of us doing that we work, the we work. And so, you know, the volume of participation, that's what begins to free us. How do it free us? Us building us is the first step to freeing us. And so let's talk about that in the context. I was thinking about it, like, let's say last week, had a little bit of a conversation in anticipation of this thing. So Deion Sanders leaves and he goes to the Colorado Buffaloes, right? Buffalo, I think they're Buffaloes, right? So why is this feeling so intense? What's all this intensity of feeling and opinion about this choice? I think ultimately as soon as because Deion Sanders isn't the issue. He's the issue. He's the prompt. He's the thing that stirs the drink. And he always has been. Right? Since he first came to public knowledge, run up downfield for Florida State. Then he goes professional. Wherever he played, with Dallas, San Francisco, Atlanta, wherever he played. Football, and then with the baseball, Yankees, Reds, Braves, helicopters, man. This is what the man does. He's consistent. Issue is consistent. So what is the issue? Deion Sanders not the issue. He's the symptom. He's the symptom, and I'm not mad at him. Constantly evoking God, the divine, and the Christianity, the way of knowing that he has developed, is also symptomatic of the society we live in. It's a prosperity gospel. A little bit deeper, a little bit more homily, a little bit more, got some ebonics in there. So, when Eddie Robinson, the coach at Alabama State, said, "You ain't swacked," he's right. Deion Sanders ain't swacked, and he's wrong. He is swacked by the Southwest Athletic Conference. You're talking about something rooted in Africana cultural meaning making. Deion Sanders is swack, because swack itself comes out of Africana, and Deion Sanders comes out of Africana. And that ain't you're using has a particular gloss when it is used in ebonics. Ain't don't mean the same thing in the white world as it does in Africana. Ain't has a kind of a semantic meaning. So, when Joe Biden sitting with Brother Leonard on the Breakfast Club used ain't grammatically correct. He said, you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Black people got mad. Why? You didn't get mad because he didn't use it grammatically correctly. Because what he's saying is, if you black, you got sense enough to know that while I ain't one of you, you can most likely bang on me till I do something. I need you more than they do, and I may do something more than these other people will, although ain't none of us with you. The anger came in, and it came out the mouth of a white man. Nobody give you license to use ebonics. Of course, we give out those passes depending on who we like and don't like. But Deion Sanders at midfield and the coach of Alabama State after Jackson State beat Alabama State, Eddie Robinson, who himself went to the NFL, himself was an all-SWAC football player, who then came back to coach at his alma mater, who's in the College Hall of Fame at his alma mater. And then he's looking at this guy across the field from him who has just beat him, another black man. And he don't want to shake his hand. He want to push him away. You ain't SWAC because I know what you're going to do. I know you and everybody else know you. Well, guess what? That's a governance tension there. I'm not mad at either of those brothers because Robinson is right and Robinson is wrong at the same time. The reason you mad at him is proof of the fact that he's SWAC. If by SWAC you mean a dimension of Africana. And the reason that he ain't SWAC is because you see this guy as somebody whose word ain't his bond. Word is bond. Now, as Bomani Jones said last week, in the wait since we were together and then to now, he's making the social structure rounds on CNN and his podcast, whatever he's saying. If you had come to Jackson State and simply said, look, I'm here for a little while, I'm going to make this move, but while I'm here, I'm going to improve. He said, you could have just been honest. Bruh, you couldn't say that. He's SU. He can't say that. If he had said it, it would have been, first of all, I don't even know that he believed that. Of course, he knew he wasn't going to stay. But, you want to believe that you're somebody else. I'm not mad at Dion Sanders for not being built like that. It's hard to be built like somebody who stays. And circumstances often dictate the choices you make. So people are saying, well, if these other black coaches had the opportunity. If these other black coaches had a path like Sanders has now, thanks to Jackson State, by the way, because, you know, as Uriah said in office hours, I was bring again, all this works together. So you're not in narrative or Nubia, then you're not in the kind of real-time work we're doing. I mean, you all know if you're on YouTube that every Monday night we got a 2-hour block in the day-by-day sequence in narrative, the Metanetric class and Dr. Ahmed and all the other classes that are going on. You know that on Monday nights we have the Introduction to Africana Studies class. And next week, y'all know we're doing Science and Technology. Jacob Carruthers' piece, Dayline English's piece, Abdullah Kalamat's piece. The homework has been posted, and so it's there. But on Monday nights, we do that for a 2-hour block. We do the class the first hour or so, and then it usually bleeds over a little bit, and then we just open it up and have conversation. Well, you know, Uriah says something very interesting. Uriah, who of course is himself a coach, you know, wrestling is his way of reaching young people and working with them, young student athletes. And he said, you know, Deion Sanders skipped over all the steps. He was never an assistant coach. He didn't have to hold a clipboard. And it's not his temperament or personality. Jackson State benefited from having Deion Sanders. And Deion Sanders benefited from having Jackson State. He said, man, spend his own money. In a minute, we're going to talk about spending your own money. Oh, we're going to have a good time in this little space we got this morning. Because, see, this is maroon space. So we have governance conversations here. We're not worried about other people. The fanboys and fangirls of Colorado, you know, the ones when he went to the basketball game, whatever it was, basketball game with his son, family, and they all cheering. And yeah, we've seen this before. It's called spectacle. This is what they expect of Coach Prime. Coach Prime, not Coach Sanders. Name not Deion Sanders. Your name Prime Time. And we're hoping you can recruit enough of, that's my best blacksmiths out here to get us some more money for our coffers. We're going to talk about that money in the coffers too, because see, imagine if that mentality at historically plantation athletic programs at colleges and universities had taken root at HBCUs. Imagine if it had. You can't catch them people. You can't catch them people. Why? Because it ain't enough for you. If every alum gave back, what's your objective? How do it free us? What is your objective? Create football superpowers at HBCUs so that the students who go to those schools don't go to class, but go to play football for a year or two or basketball for a year or two, and then go to the pros. And in a minute, we're going to talk about all this. I'm just kind of laying it out. We're going to put this back into the thing. Now, as I'm talking about this, please keep in mind, in terms of this through line that you say, Prof, please keep in mind, y'all, that our conversations, now that this space, Professor Hunter has kind of built, I mean, this architecture is glorious, has built maroon space, the dismal swamp, the swamps of Louisiana, the backyard, the green the green mountains of Jamaica, Colombia. This is the place that we have, the maroon spaces in Zinga's liberated zone and what we now call Angola. You know, all this space, we got the space. And then out of that space, as we contribute our experiences, we're building and unblocking those arteries and capillaries as we connect what we're talking about to what we've experienced. And then as it releases into this other valence, as everybody's here and YouTube and beyond, people are sharing and it's reverberating, people are putting their things on. Every time we talk about something specific, it happens. But let's continue. What you see then is the question becomes, what is the purpose of our institutions? We're going to talk about this. Let me pause here and think about this. Because again, last week, this thing hadn't happened. Between last week and this week, it happened. So I said, let me just sit here with this in a minute and think about this. This convergence. We must define what our institutions should be about. Because it isn't just about institutions. The intensity of feeling and opinion we've had in the last week about this announcement, here in the United States, by the way, because we know the world didn't stop spinning. They replaced the whole president in Peru last week. Pedro Castillo, who indigenous, former school teacher, they consider him an extreme leftist. He tried to swap out his cabinet again. They locked the man up. The sister who's in there now, Dina Boluarte, the vice president, she's a lawyer by training. The market don't like that kind of thing. They don't want this thing to go extremely left. The former president of Peru, Castillo, last week called the president of Mexico and said, look, can I come there? But they caught him before he could get out of the country, and he's locked up. He wasn't corrupt. The guy is trying to do something for the people, and by the people, I mean the poor, and he didn't have the felicity to begin to ride the wild horses in Peru. You know, they've had 6 presidents in the last 4 years. That happened while we talking about Deion Sanders. I mean, let's just be clear. I mean, there's a whole kind of stuff happening all over. Kind of mentioned South Africa. But anyway, but the point is that this week, I said, let's think about this question of institutions. So I've been reading, in fact, just finished and then interviewed this brother. He's named Brian Jones. He is the director of public education for the New York Public Library. He's written a very important new book called The Tuskegee Student Uprising on the history of Tuskegee University. And I recommend it. I mean, some books I would say, hey, I ain't got it. But that one, if you got a couple of dollars, you might want to have that conversation. We had a conversation with him last week, and we were talking about the nature of what happened at Tuskegee in the 1950s and 60s, particularly 67 and 68. The students called for a black university. This is a call that was done in the 60s, late 60s. Howard University gets the most kind of visibility, and nobody gets any real visibility about this call. It ends up being the birth of what eventually becomes institutionalized university-based Black studies, and that's less and less important with each passing week as we had this conversation. Because again, remember, the source of our collective work, the we, is we, not these institutions. We'll get to the HBCUs in a minute. But in that conversation, I was talking with Brian, and he said, you know, these are students, many of them first generation going to college, who inherited a civil rights, human rights struggle from the faculty and the residents at Tuskegee and in the community. The previous generation, cats like Dr. Charles Gamillion versus Lightfoot, those of you know that civil rights case, voting rights case at Supreme Court level. Gamillion and them, you've heard me, we've talked about many times, Jesse Guzman, who worked for Monroe Work at Tuskegee. I won't get too deep into that, who wrote a book on the Tuskegee Civic Association. These are the Black upper and middle class people in Tuskegee. And they had all these Black people, doctors and lawyers and faculty at Tuskegee who lived in that little town. But then you got the farmers and the people who live in the rural community and the poor people. That's most of the Black people in the Black Belt of Alabama. And these young people coming to Tuskegee, first generation, many of them, from outside Alabama, many of them, there's one sister in particular, Gwen Patton, who is just, I would encourage you all to get her memoir. It was published posthumously a couple of years ago, 2020. Gwen Patton is a major figure. And again, as we are thinking through this through line, this idea of what has been the most essential, when I mention names like this, the beautiful thing about it is looking in the chat in Nubia, then looking in the comments on YouTube, if you know these people, this is where you put your memory with the rest of us. We're literally every week writing. We're writing books. This is the annotation piece. This is how, and what that does is it displaces these individuals in a society where people say, well, you're a scholar, you worked on. When I hear people say, I'm working on such and such, really? Yeah, I've interviewed a lot. Why don't you just throw out the name and let the people tell their own story? Because when that would completely collapse this structure of intellectual privilege that the academy represents. I don't mean close the university, although I don't know that any university can be reformed of any cultural background. But what we're doing is shifting the authority to center it in where it needs to be. So if you knew Gwen Patton, she's from Michigan, Inkster, Michigan. Went south to Tuskegee, was part of that movement. Chester Higgins, who still walks the earth, the great photographer, who was in school at Tuskegee, who helped Brian Jones to do this research as he entrusted him with documents from this movement. But anyway, I don't want to get too deep into that. As I was talking to Brian, we're having this conversation, Dr. Jones, about this Tuskegee uprising, because you know I have a special place in my heart for Tuskegee and Alabama, and my people, my mama's people in particular. He said, you know, there's this tension between us seeing HBCUs, Black colleges, as conduits for our generations to acquire the skills to prosper. Well, to prosper for what? For the community. Okay, is that rhetorical? It shouldn't be. The models of most HBCUs got some sense of service, some sense of moving together and doing this for the community. So you want the students to prosper, but these students were calling for something else because they took the cue from the previous generations who were teaching them, who were training them. They were going out in the community. There was a cat there, Dean Phillips, who's still alive. Y'all know Dean Phillips, he was dean of students at Tuskegee back in the 60s, still around. He was sending students out into the community beyond Tuskegee And as they're doing these programs, these education programs, they're getting quote unquote radicalized, whatever the hell that means. That means they're connecting to the people. And the people have their ideas about what they want to be. There's a direct relationship between the students of Tuskegee and all the students who came together in neighboring Lowndes County for the Lowndes County Freedom Organization. Stokely Carmichael's on their campus. Malcolm X is on their campus during this period. Back and forth, these tensions, and these students are getting more and more grounded in the idea of this institution must reflect the values and the needs of our people, not just the upper class and the middle class. And those tensions come out. So in the end of the conversation, me and Brian talking, he says, in some ways you got prosperity, and you got this quest for justice. He said, those two things represent the heart of this HBCU work, prosperity and justice. I said, hold on, brother. Up until this moment, my favorite motto for HBCUs is probably Clark Atlanta University. I'll find a way or make one. I'm not a big fan of the Latin stuff, even though I understand the tensions and why they did it. School I went to, Tennessee State, enter to learn, go forth to serve. Yeah, you see that all the time. But I like that I'll find a way to make one. But I like that idea, prosperity and justice. How do you have that together? Well, in some ways, I think this Dion Sanders story touches on those tensions, prosperity and justice. Because Coach Sanders is given really much almost a prosperity gospel line. We need to rise together and thrive together. And you stop taking advantage of HBCUs. Yeah. We're going to get this and we're going to get this, the thing you deserve. We deserve this because it's abundance. And then, when he leaves, he's getting criticized. He's out there answering questions. And last week he said, what about me? You keep saying, what about, what are we going to do for us? Well, what about me? What about me? What about my family? What about my mama? Bruh, you got enough money so that you ain't got but how much is enough? Maybe there's no enough. And that's your right. That's his right. Pause. If you want to say that's the right, fine. But understand, as Bomani said, if that's what it is, say that up front. Can't do that. It's your job not to say it up front. It's your job is to agitate. And if nothing else, we know the public life of Deion Sanders over the last couple of decades has been disruption. I'm able to do this, so I'm going to do it. I don't play football and baseball on the same weekend. I'm going to get in a helicopter to go. Why? Because I can. Okay. So then we say, we want to do that. No, in some ways, we cheering for Deion Sanders the same way we cheer about any runaway slave. In other words, you just want to see somebody just messed up. But he'll say, I'm an agitator. I'm an agitator. Okay, that's a very much an SU energy. He ain't SU completely, of course. I mean, the metaphor fails once you go too deep into it. But at the end of the day, it's a disruption. It's supposed that he said, I'm there to make you think. He literally said that last week. I'm here to make you think. Okay, bro. Now we thinking. Let's think. Let's think about this. Again, if memory is the lifeblood of a community, what we've done well, what we haven't done well, how we can remember and go forth. If that is at the center of at least this little corner of the Nubia narrative universe and the universe beyond, as we build moment by moment, week by week, as the social structures around us continue to eat themselves. In fact, my bag is over there. I won't get up and get it. Yesterday's headline in the Financial Times, I think you all probably saw if you look at the news a little bit. Exxon Mobil announced, I think, a $50 billion stock buyback. Chevron is doing somewhere in the mid 20 billions. Really? Yeah. Because even as the gas prices have lowered a little bit, but the point is that they are profiteering. And Joe Biden is saying, y'all should give. Our first obligation is to our stockholders. And so what you see is as this world around us continues to roil, we, in terms of our governance formations, this is another opportunity for us to renew the momentum of memory to figure out what we need to do to make our advancement and maybe save the whole damn planet, at least the species, for a little bit longer. But in that conversation, that requires unblocking our capillaries, unblocking our arteries, circulating that blood, having that jolly function. And in the momentum of memory, we get so upset at this moment when it comes to Deion Sanders in some ways, and everybody got an opinion, as you say, Prof, in some ways because we're experiencing it viscerally. And what does that mean, this intensity of experience, this feeling? I think we have to think. Let's think. Deion says, I'm here to make you think. Well, first of all, let's get rid of the social structure question. Again, we use our African studies framework. Social structure question is who we are to other people. We know who Deion Sanders is to other people. We know who Britney Griner is to other people. We know who each of us is in terms of African people to other people. We know that that is a range of things, but one thing it's not is human in the same way that people think of themselves as human. Race makes that impossible. It makes, as much as they would want, people would want to embrace Deion Sanders as a human being. The simple fact of the matter is he's Coach Prime. So a source of our irritation is other people got an opinion about this. Well, I mean, what would you expect him to do? I mean, if he got more money, hold on. You ain't got no opinion. We can have this opinion in public, but we having a governance conversation. You need to stay out of this. Because if you want to come in here and have an opinion on this, then we want to have a conversation with you about reparations. And we want to have a conversation with you about a whole lot of things. Since you got an opinion on this, well, if you have an opinion on this, we're going to have an opinion on a lot of things. We're going to have a candid conversation. But guess what? We can't have no candid conversation in the world where race is framed. Because that's where people make the mistake of, you said this about that, but when you said about Brett Favre, you said this about Kyrie, but you didn't say this about, no. See, you can't, it's no parallel. Whiteness defines it. They say what they want to say. So that irritation is there. So let's just set aside the social structure for a minute. We having a governance conversation, and let's finish it up today. So in many ways for the social structure, let me say one other thing. Deion Sanders is a social structure creation. He's cultivated like a crop, but he's cultivated out of our governance formations. In other words, what does the social structure want from Deion Sanders? They want entertainment, just like they want entertainment for all of us. Run fast, tell a few jokes, not too many, play a little hip hop music, not too much. All the things that he knows from Florida State, he knows from the Yankees and the Braves, and he knows from the Cowboys and 49ers and the Falcons. He knows all that. He's going back in that world now. He's had a chance to sit in a governance formation at Jackson State and be able to relax. Maybe there's tension between his older son and his younger son, because the younger one seemed like he a little torn about it, right? I don't know if I want to leave, right? But the point is this. When he said on Facebook Live last week, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this for my son. Okay, you try and put your son in the best place to be in the league. We understand look, it's no problem with how you're navigating, but understand all of that is coming out of a social structure that has a certain image of who we are and how we are valued that you have internalized, and that's fine. None of us are immune to it. We're having this conversation in English, for God's sake. We are all subjects to what Carter Woodson called the sequel to slavery. We're trying our best to anchor ourselves in ourselves, not only as an act of self-defense, but as an act of restoring and expanding our common humanity. That's why we're here in Baltimore now, this Black Family Summit. That's what Baba Land and them been doing for decades. That's what the National Association of Black Social Workers have been doing for decades. That's why they put their statement out decades ago. Interracial adoption, we're not for it. We'd rather have children adopted by people out of their community, but we'd rather have them be adopted by anybody who is they're safe with than not be adopted. Okay, so we're not against white people, but can we find some Black people? Why? Because we're trying to restore our humanity. These children have been through enough. We're talking about the family. We're talking about the unit. We're talking about the community. I'm not talking about these ways that they're critiqued. People talk about, oh yeah, we're talking about family. Is that patriarchal? No. Save that for the social structure dissertation defenses. Okay, we're talking about governance formation. And how do we know whether it's valid or not? We talk about our own experiences, our own joys, our own sadness, our own traumas. And how we validate isn't through somebody's dissertation committee or somebody's publishing company or somebody's grant or somebody's award. No, we're validating it by our own common conversations. Okay, so in that space, Deion Sanders was sitting in that space for several years, most of it during COVID, with an institution that said, we don't care if you never held a clipboard. We don't care if you're not you have never been an assistant coach. You Deion Sanders, you got all the shine. We want that shine here. And you're joining something where we were already leading the league in attendance and sweat. Well, we think you're going to take us to the next level. The question is, what is that next level? What is your concept of where you're trying to go? Because when the guy leaves, as you knew he was going to leave when he came, you knew that deep down. The guy is consistent. Issue is always consistent. Issue gonna be that same guy. Deion Sanders, that same guy. You knew that. You didn't want to say it. You hoped it didn't happen so soon, but it happened. And now in the wake, you're roiled. Why? Because we come down now to the fundamental issue. Something me and Robert Jones were talking about. Robert, this is Daddy's name, Robert. Me and Brian Jones were talking about last week. Got to wrote the book on Tuskegee. At the center of this issue of HBCUs is that we have never fully defined the purpose and mission of HBCUs. We've always just made the assumption. And here's where I want to go for a few minutes this morning in this conversation. Thank you, Dion. You see, your job is to make us think. Let's think. What is the purpose and function of these institutions? Because we know individuals don't beat institutions. And we know that you move from one institution to another institution because that is your life course, your objective, what you say God said to you. That's fine, brother. No problem. And thank you, because this has been the biggest conversation about historically Black colleges and universities probably ever. And was all triggered by a social structure definition of Blackness, one that we have so been deeply marked by that it drives how we see ourselves. The football coach that became a coach because he's a celebrity, because he was a football and baseball player, not a towering scholar coach. Well, coaches aren't scholars. And here's where we get to talk. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. There are tensions between institution building and disruption. Sanders is a disruptor. He disrupts beautifully. We love watching him disrupt. Whether it be an offensive scheme on a football field, whether it be stealing a base or hitting a home run on a baseball field, whether it be showing up dripped with all the gold and swag and telling kids to go to class and you ain't wearing shower shoes, and hey, I'm with it 100%. Leading Jackson State, J Nation with the big J on his end with the oversized hat turned sideways. I'm a little shaky about that, but I'm okay. Our word on the street is they're going back to the block JSU. I don't know. Y'all help me, because again, we're annotating this as we go on. I want to hear about this. Next week's the Celebration Bowl. I ain't gonna say less about that, more next week. But Sanders is a disruptor for the NFL, the Major League Baseball, then the HBCU athletics, and this overflow idea. Now, the idea is you recruit these young brothers. They come to a HBCU. They see what it is. They get their friends. Next thing you know, you've upset the apple cart. The social structure couldn't let that happen. He was going to leave because at some point they said, we'll give him $1 billion. We can on slavery billing. We talked about that last week. So, but from our center, the question becomes, how do it free us? And that's where I want to go. Is there anything in our memory? Is there anything in the momentum of memory as we unblock our capillaries and arteries? Is there anything as we're doing the jolly function, DJALI or JALI, jolly? We've talked about it many times, going to narrative. We talked about Hampate Ba. We've done a lot of work on that. We'll do a whole lot more. But is there anything in that function that can help us understand this foundational question Professor Hunter has put into this 6 conceptual categories, the 7th overarching question? Yeah. But how do it free us? Well, I think there is. And I'm going to take this directly from the question of how we subsume ourselves. When Eddie Robinson Jr., no relation to Grambling Eddie Robinson, Stephen A. Smith, but when Eddie Robinson, the coach of Alabama State, says you ain't swag, he's not saying you ain't Black. He's saying the reason I'm here isn't because I can't go anywhere else. And people saying, yeah, right. Well, I don't know. But some people who had a chance to leave didn't leave. Right? And again, each generation inherits from previous generations the momentum, and they make a different set of choices. Because remember, for 10 years on the campus of Cheney State University, there are 2 statues. One's already there, the other one's planned to be there. 2 statues for Cheney State University. You know what those 2 statues are? Not faculty, not Octavius Catto, who was at the Institute for Colored Youth, not Fannie Jackson Coppin. No, the 2 statues. The 2 statues. The former coach of Simon Gratz High School, and y'all from Philly. He was the coach at Simon Gratz High School. Then he took a job 1972 at Cheney University. His name's John Cheney. John Cheney took his Cheney team to the NC2A playoffs. For the same 10 years he was there, he was the men's coach, the women's coach, same gym, divided by a curtain, a barrier sometimes because they had to practice in the same, sometimes they had no heat. The bus breakdown, going to games. We talked about this too. Remember, Jim, we talked about John Cheney's memoir. We talked about the women's coach memoir. This sister, just retired, Vivian Stringer. Cheney University, 1982, went to the Final Four. First and still to this day, the only historically black college university to go to the Final Four in 1982. 1982, John Cheney took a job at Temple University. Vivian Stringer took a job at the University of Iowa. And in the social structure, the only thing that they talk about in terms of Vivian Stringer, one of the winningest coaches in the history of women's basketball, and John Cheney, one of the most legendary figures in the history of men's basketball. Only thing they talk about is in white schools they worked at. But a lot of people don't remember, and there are two statues now. Cheney, there's a statue of Stringer, statue of John Cheney. Come on now. Go ahead, Chad. John Cheney was my uncle's coach at Simon Gratz. See, let me tell y'all something. Pause here. Give me 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I want this to be very clear. All of my fellow academics, that's your job, okay? But this is the work. So when you say you're doing the work, when you write an incredibly brilliant tome, 200 pages, tightly written with all the theory and all of it, yeah, and then, 500 people buy it, and I'm one of them 500, read it, you get the rest, it's beautiful. Yeah, that's something else, just the work. You see these annotations coming up, and the ones you'll read on YouTube later? That's the people telling their own story. We don't need no interlocutor between the people and the social structure, because we're going to tell our own story. We're unblocking arteries. Y'all fill up this chat. Y'all fill up this annotation. I get to go back, and this is where the books are written. Gwen Patton wrote a beautiful memoir, autobiography. After her years at Tuskegee, she traveled the world. Pan-Africanist, went on, lived in New York, for a long time, did all this work, came back to Alabama, started an archive at Trenholm State Community College, 2-year school, the first archive at a community college. Gwen Patton, his sister, was in the Tuskegee Student Uprising. Me and Brian were talking about this. I said, bro, the beautiful thing about that is when she was interviewed by the history makers, interestingly enough, Gwen Patton said, the reason I did this here, the reason I convinced the president of Trenholm State, and by the way, Trenholm State is now named for Council Trenholm, who was the president of Alabama State for many years, a major figure in the Alabama Teachers Association. We're going to talk about the Teachers Association in a minute too. Trenholm State College, Montgomery, Alabama, Gwen Patton started that archive because she said these papers don't belong at Auburn or Emory. They don't even belong at Tuskegee or other place. They belong at a place where the students who go to this place are the direct heirs. These poor people, these first generation students at a community college, these are the heirs to the people we were fighting for. And that's why this archive with these papers about Alabama go be at this Black community college named for this Black legendary figure in higher education in Alabama. That's very important. Okay, coming back now. So yes, so okay, Gratz was your Cheney was your uncle's coach at Simon Gratz. We're filling up the annotation. So, but nobody screamed bloody murder. Of course, there's disappointment at Cheney when John Cheney leaves Cheney State and then Vivian Stringer leaves Cheney State. Much more accomplished, both of them, than Deion Sanders will probably ever be at the college level. And that's not shade on him. I'm saying it's a different time, it's a different era, but let's be very clear about that. Different circumstances. And they both went on to be legends, and they both had love for Cheney. In fact, they talked to each other just about every day. When you read his memoir, and I knew John Cheney a little bit because I was at Temple. So you hear him talk, you hear her talk, they talk all the time. Cheney's now ancestor. But there wasn't the same kind of thing. So we're looking now into the momentum of memory to coaches at HBCUs that might give us a glimpse into how this momentum of memory played in previous generations and what we can learn about it, because Coach Prime has given us an opportunity now to think. Thank you, brother. Let's think about this. What is the purpose of athletics at HBCUs? We can't catch the white boys. In fact, I want to mention something. I was thinking about this in the context of why you can't catch the white boys. Oklahoma State University. Let's talk about Oklahoma State for a minute. I was looking up something the other day. The reason I looked this up wasn't because of Oklahoma State. I was reading USA Today a couple of days ago, and they had a front page of the sports section, had a story. Some of y'all may know this strength coach. I didn't know him. His name is Glass, Rob Glass, Glass. He is the highest paid assistant coach in college athletics. He makes $1 million a year, $1.1 million a year, to be the strength coach for Oklahoma State. What the hell? How is that possible? Well, they play in a stadium at Oklahoma State, which is just west of Tulsa. They play in a stadium named for a man who made his money in oil out there in Oklahoma. His name is T. Boone Pickens. Y'all know that name, T. Boone Pickens. T. Boone Pickens Stadium Stillwater, Oklahoma. The HWCU, founded in 1890, the Moral Land Grant Act, is younger than Jackson State, but students pay about $14,000 a year to go there. And they have about $1.5 billion endowment. T. Boone's Pickens gave $165 million to their athletics programs in 2006. He's an ancestor now. Over the course of his life, he gave hundreds of millions more. He gave $400 million to academic programs, including geology. Why? Because you're gonna look for oil. You can't catch that. You can't catch it. The reason they pay an assistant coach $1.1 million at Oklahoma State to be the guy that train you in lifting weights. I don't know what kind of guy he is. The article says he's a great guy. I don't care if he's a great guy, bad guy. He make $1.1 million to be a coach, as they say in the South, a coach. You know, coach making $1.1 million. And the question is, why would you want $1 million assistant coaches? So we can compete? No. What's the purpose? How do it free us? I see how it might free somebody going to the league, because Deion Sanders' whole thing is, you come with me, you're going to the league. Okay, that's great. Start with your son. That's beautiful. But how do it free us? Well, because it shows you the way you can do it. No, that's one by one. That's that prosperity gospel. I'm sorry, bro. In terms of ways of knowing, I absolutely get it. I know where it comes from. It's not going to harm live my life, because word is bond. If you're going to do that, you should come in and told them that from jump. And they still would have come. Why? Because them is the cats who are coming to see you. Because whether you say it or not, we know you mean it. We see your life. You've been very consistent. It's not a rhetorical ethic. So don't come and say, we're going to lift all HBCUs. And I'm going to I know you even think you might mean that, but that's going against everything you've done. That'll be like saying trust Black women and then you go date one. In other words, but that would be going against everything. I know what you're saying sounds good to me. That's what I want, but I got to watch you, because that would not be consistent with, I mean, you played for 150 football teams, 500 or so baseball teams. You went there. You was in the rap video. You was at the pool. Then you come here and say, I'm supposed to believe that what you're saying, which goes in the face of everything you ever done. I ain't mad at you, bro, but you got to know. I'm laughing. Look at that. Go ahead. Yes. All right, so let's continue. Is that how coaches work at HBCUs? Well, I had to turn to my alma mater for a minute. Tennessee State. I wanted to do this because there are examples that we can use. And one of the examples, this is a brother who was the track coach at Tennessee State, Ed Temple. This is his book, Only the Pure in Heart Survive. Ed Temple, Only the Pure in Heart Survive. Ed Temple was the track coach at Tennessee State for decades. He was Wilma Rudolph's coach. She wrote, in fact, the foreword to this book. This book was written by Ed Temple with the help of a ghostwriter, and also his wife. Ed Temple and his wife and their daughter, but Temple and his wife for decades ran the post office at Tennessee State University. He is the most accomplished track and field coach in American history. His teams, as we know, Black women, won Olympic medal after Olympic medal after Olympic medal, almost 30 of them. They won the Pan American Games over and over again, medal in all these areas. Ed Temple could have gone anywhere by the end of his career. But as he said, I'm dedicated to Tennessee State. He said in 1950, the Tennessee State track program consisted of a partial track ending at a dump, no budget to speak of, 3 or 4 fellows and 2 girls, Jean Patton and Frances Newbern. This was the first year the country had a U.S. women's team for the Pan American Games, and Patton made it. I coached both men and women from 1950 to 1953. He went to Tennessee State, by the way. In fact, the first chapter here is called The Weirdest Chapter of Them All. He said he got tricked. He said, if I hadn't been tricked, I wonder what I'd be doing today. In fact, let me just pause here. 1:23, 1 hour, 23 minutes. What time is 8:22? This is just enough time. I want to take our time and walk a little bit through these examples of of Ed Temple, because there are many other examples I could have used. John McClendon at Tennessee A&I State College. Some of y'all may know that name. John McClendon, born in Kansas in 1915. What part? I can't forget what part of Kansas he's from. John McClendon, who studied basketball under James Naismith at the University of Kansas. Yeah, that James Naismith, who was the coach at North Carolina Central. Well, they called North Carolina College for Negroes. That's who's playing Jackson State in Atlanta next week. He was the coach at Tennessee State, the first coach at any college to win back-to-back national championships in the NAIA. Dick the Skull Barnett and all them. Some of y'all know those names. Dick Barnett and them playing for the Knicks. Still around, I think. But McClendon, I met Coach McClendon late in life. They named the floor at Tennessee State, the basketball floor for him. One of the great basketball coaches. I thought about him. I thought about, on one end, Hiawatha, Kansas. That's where he's from, Hiawatha, Kansas. He was, when he was coach at North Carolina State College for Negroes, now North Carolina Central, they played a game against the Duke Medical School team. It was what they called a secret game. Some of y'all heard that. The first time a black school and a white school played each other, and they didn't let any press in, they didn't let nobody they were playing. But on one end, you got cats like that. In my generation, I think about Olympians like my old classmate, Angela Williams, who was a Tennessee State Tiger Belle. When I went to my freshman year in 1983 was her freshman year. She spent a couple of years at Tennessee State. She ran for Trinidad and Tobago the end of her freshman year. She ran in the Olympics, Trinidad and Tobago. She transferred in 86, I think it was, or 85, to Seton Hall, where she became All-American. Well, she's been the track coach at Prairie View. That's in SWAC. She's SWAC. Coach Williams been the coach at Prairie View now for almost 20 years. Committed to those black colleges. Again, an Olympian. Absolutely. Now, track and field different than football. Not a revenue generating sport. I'm coming back to Ed Temple in a minute, but there are many other names I could bring up. The great Joe Gillum Sr. The pro coaches, Don Shula and them, would come down to Tennessee State and watch his practices and pick his brain. He wrote 4 or 5 books on football strategy, offense and defense. This is my brother, Randy Fuller, my sister's husband, my brother's father in many ways. In many ways, Joe Gillum Sr. adopted Randy. He was as close to him as his blood father, or even more than his blood father in many ways. When Randy came, Randy played in the NFL, went to the NFL from Tennessee State, like a lot of players. But Joe Gillum Sr., brilliant mind. He and his wife, Tennessee State, all the way through. And I'm just mentioning Tennessee State. Again, we're annotating. I want people to fill up the chat, fill up the annotations with stories like this of coaches who were also academics. Coach Gillum taught classes. Coach Temple was a sociologist by training. He taught sociology classes. Now, Dion Sanders' job not to teach sociology, not to teach history. Dion Sanders' job is to Dion Sanders' job is to make us think. Okay, let's think. So I could have talked about any of these people, right? Could have talked about any of these people, but I don't want to talk about, and then maybe let me say for my generation, you got a Angela Williams, from previous generation, you got a John McClendon, you got a John Merritt, you got a Eddie Robinson and Graham, so forth and so on, Big House Gaines out in North Carolina. Now, what about this young generation? You can't expect these. Well, what's the sister's name, Professor Hunter? She was she threw the hammer in the Olympics. She made the political stances. Gwen, we talked about her. Gwendolyn, it'll come to me.
Gwen Berry.
Prof.
Yes.
Where is Gwen Berry right now?
Where is she right? I interviewed her too.
In September 2022, a couple of months ago, Gwen Berry took a job coaching track and field under Chandler Cheeseborough, one of Ed Temple's Tiger Bells, who for years has been the head track and field coach for women's and men's track at Tennessee State. Gwen Berry took a job and is on her staff. Gwen Berry is now working at an HBCU. Thanks, Dion. Let's think.
What?
Oh, yes, let's think. We're going to think, bruh. We love you. I may come down to Atlanta, shake your hand. Thank you, brother, because you have shaken us awake. We're going to think about this. Yeah. Thank you, brother. You see, you have choices in life. Gwen Berry ain't a millionaire like you. They tried to crucify Gwen Berry. That's right, you did interview her. That's right. Now, why is Gwen Berry in Nashville, Tennessee, at an HBCU, training young women and men throw that hammer. To send them to the NFL, ain't no money in track like that. Not for black people. Let's go to Ed Temple. I think that's where she is. You should check while we're doing, because I don't want to make no mistakes. I mean, it's so new. Ed Temple. Now, y'all see now why I like this, because the name of his memoir, Only the Pure in Heart Survive, 1980, Broadman Press. I don't even know if y'all can find this. It need to be brought back into print. Now, if you want to read about all those, a lot of these black cops, there's only one. Let me not say that, because I don't want to say only. I'm aware of one book that kind of traces this stuff in terms of athletic tradition at a HBCU. The book that does it in the greatest detail that I'm aware of is my man Dwight Lewis's book, A Will to Win, which is about the athletic history of Tennessee State University. Every HBCU should have a book like that. Because see, what this does is unblock our memory. Because the idea is somehow we try to be big black-faced versions of Colorado or Alabama or Florida State, or the idea that we're supposed to be black-faced versions of it, that's coming from amnesia. It's not coming from the momentum of memory. I ain't mad at it. Every generation has to inherit a tradition and shape it to the context of their times. But that begins with inheriting the momentum of memory. It does not begin with a blank slate. So just like those Tuskegee students, when those Tuskegee students of the 1960s, Gwen Patton, I think Gwen Berry had to take her last name, Gwendolyn Patton, and all of those students from that period, Chester Higgins and them, pushed back against the previous generation, who were their teachers and administrators, people like Charles Gamillion, who had been the medical doctor, who was on the faculty at Tuskegee, worked at the Black Hospital there, who was the lead plaintiff in Gamillion versus Lightfoot to bust the gerrymander. Once they got the right to vote, that next generation came in and said, we're going to put a black sheriff in Tuskegee. And the previous generation was like, hold on now, slow your roll, because we want these white people mad at us. Look, man, y'all fought for the right to vote. You gave us the baton. We're going to use that shit. So Gamillion and them couldn't have anticipated the Black Panther Party of Lowndes County, Alabama, the Lowndes County Freedom Organization. And the Lowndes County Freedom Organization has a direct tie to the Black Panther Party in the West Coast. But it is the momentum of memory that enables us to make that momentum. But if you start from scratch, you'll think football coaches and track coaches and baseball coaches and basketball. Well, what am I saying? Basketball and football coaches at HBCU, you'll think their job is to level up. What is level up? Level up and make all this money. Yeah, we don't want nobody shutting their doors, but we want everybody giving back to their schools. And we must understand that people was already coming. We want more. And then the question we have to ask is, what is the purpose of these schools? These young people tried to push us toward the Black universities in the 60s and 70s. I don't think the university can be reformed as a structure, hence narrative, Nubia, the work we're doing here, because this is where it should always be. But for the moment, let us consider the possibilities of what we can do at our Black colleges as extensions of the community that where this is the center. Let us think about it, not in the context of dreaming what can be, but going back to what was and using the momentum of memory to adjust, having that memory to impose ourselves on how to make it better now. To Ed Temple, Wilma Rudolph, forward. Sonny Hill, you better throw that name. I used to listen to Sonny Hill every weekend on WHAT. Come on, y'all. This is Wilma Rudolph writing for Ed Temple. Her man. Oh, by the way, Cheeseboro ran for Temple, and so did Wilma Rudolph. In fact, Chandler Cheeseboro was one of the last great medal-winning Tiger Bells. That's the name of the Tennessee State track team. Wilma Rudolph writes, I remember the year 1954 when I had just begun to find out that young girls were involved in sports. I saw for the first time Coach Edward Temple wearing his black pants and black and white striped official shirt, waiting for the basketball game to start. She's 14 years old at this time. Ed Temple used to go get the high school students. Remember now, this is segregation. Skeeter, as they called her, Wilma Rudolph. Made a movie about it. Y'all should go look at it, right? That's in memory service correct. We talked about that, didn't we, Prom? That's where Denzel Washington, his wife, met on the set of Wilma, right? So if you were a young kid, she says, writes, playing sports, you thought all officials were the same. They were the mean guys. Little did I know at this time in my life that this lovely man was none other than Edward Stanley Temple, women's track coach at Tennessee State University, who was destined to become a world famous track coach. So I was very excited and couldn't believe it when he asked when asked by my high school basketball coach if I would like to go to the university and train with the college women. Thus began a different life for Wilma Rudolph. She's writing about herself. She says, the beginning was rough and great, and the first woman runner I met on campus was May Fags. My life has never been the same. May Fags. In fact, I'm going to show y'all something, because I know we're going to run a little bit up against the clock in a minute. I got to pour libation to open up the session today. But I want to show y'all a page in here that Ed Temple put, because the last few chapters are about like track. He's got a whole training regimen in here. Let me see if I find this page right quick of these black women. Because the thing that Ed Temple was proudest of in his life, this was 1980. Coach Temple made transition in 2016, not that long ago. There's a statue of him on Tennessee State's campus. Here he gives a page called The 25 Most Outstanding Tiger Bells, 1950 to 1975. Number 1, Wilma Rudolph Eldridge. Number 2, Wyoming Attias. I went to school with her niece, Caratina, went to Tennessee State. Eve McGuire, Duval. Madeline Manning Jackson. Lucinda Williams Adams. May Fagg Stars. Barbara Jones Slater, BJ. Martha Hudson Penniman. He goes on. But here, Prof, can you see what's there in addition to their names?
Their degrees.
Every Tiger Bell Ed Temple ever coached graduated from college.
You know what is powerful about that? You just talked about a while ago, Vivian Stringer retiring. Her replacement, Coquise Washington, has a law degree.
Come on now.
She's a law degree. I was like, from Notre Dame, the school.
Professor Hunter, what is the purpose, Professor Hunter?
Yes.
What is the purpose? We haven't asked that question. Prime said, I'm here to get these boys coached up, and I'm going to get them. You got to live in your dream. What's your dream, Prime? Make their money? Well, bachelor's degree, I don't need a bachelor's degree. Yeah, they came to college. We're going to listen to Coach Temple, though. We're going to listen to this ancestor. I could go on and talk about, but let me go here. Let's go to Ed Temple. Ed Temple, book 1, chapter 1, the weirdest chapter of them all. Ed Temple says, between blowing trumpets and winning gold medals lies the weirdest chapter of them all. The story of how I came to Tennessee State University and how the Tiger Bells ever got started to begin with. If I hadn't been tricked, I wonder what I'd be doing today. See, here's the problem. When you start asking teenagers what they want to do, of course they all want to go to the NFL. One of the reasons we have a Black Family Summit is because, I'm sure it'll be discussed today, every 5-year-old to every 15-year-old in the country, if you Black and if you want these schools where the teachers aren't paid enough, you ask them what they want to be. They play for the Ravens. You know how many Jackson jerseys I done seen between the train station? And all right, Temple writes, I was the only child of Christopher Richard and Ruth Naomi Temple. He's from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, by the way. But my grandparents, who lived 4 blocks away, for the most part, took over raising me. I remember them taking me every Sunday to the Baptist church. It's governance right here, where we always sat exactly 7 seats back from the front corner. Nobody else ever got in those seats. I would sneak in things to play with and stayed in trouble pretty often. My music career began in the 6th grade. He talks about playing the trumpet, goes on. He said, when I transferred to John Harris High School, I became an all-state halfback in football and the first Black captain of the track and basketball teams. He says, I'll never forget one time we were playing a basketball game in Hershey. You ever been to Hershey, Professor Hunter? And, and I was then the co-captain and the only Black on the team. The Hershey cheerleaders kept chanting, quote, get that nigga, get that nigga. Our coach called a timeout and told me if I wanted to pull out that he'd understand, but I finished the game. A similar incident happened when the football squad went off in a chartered bus to play a game. He goes on, says how they attacked the bus. He said, my main rival during the time was a fellow named Leroy Craig at William Penn High School. He was also an all-state athlete. We both had several college scholarship offers. I had every intention of going to Penn State. Penn State, you know, Pennsylvania, you know what that is about. I also had this neighbor, Tom Harris, who was going to coach at Tennessee State. I had never heard of it. And he kept encouraging me to go with him to build up the track program. I didn't pay too much attention until he gave me the clincher. He told me that put my timer on, that Leroy Craig was going to TSU. What I didn't know was that he had already told Craig that I was going there too. Both of us were thinking that this unknown school must be pretty good if the other was going, so we both went. Tricked him. Now you recruiting boys with dreams going to the NFL. I'm wondering how much time you let them spend with that faculty. I wonder if you had them go and do a ritual. There's a new book out. I don't know. I'm just starting to read it. And I'm always skeptical of folks working on stuff. I think this story should be told by the people who were there. Nancy Bristow just wrote a book called Steeped in the Blood of Racism, Black Power, Law and Order, and the 1970 shootings at Jackson State College. But I would recommend that everybody, if you can get your hands on this particular book, Mary McGrath, we're talking about her new book on Margaret Walker. This is a piece that she edited for Margaret Walker called On Being Female, Black, and Free. Essays by Margaret Walker, 1922 to 1992. Margaret Walker was on the faculty at Jackson State College, as we talked about many times. Oh, not many times. Last week, there's a piece that she wrote in here that is quoted in that other book on the second anniversary of the massacre at Jackson State in 1970. If you ever go to Jackson State College, you know that there's a marker there for the killing of those brothers on page 177. Give me a second here. I'm going back to Ed Temple. Because again, Temple said, I never heard of Tennessee State, but they figure it must be a pretty good school if that's where my man's is going, my big rival. And so the white schools wanted them. They went down there because the guy tricked them into going. When Philip Gibbs and James Earl Green, the two black students who were killed by the funky police in Mississippi in the murders as they shot at and wounded black children, black people in Jackson, Mississippi, Jackson State College, they killed these two brothers, going along with massacres at Orangeburg, South Carolina State University, Southern University, these massacres that took place, these police killing black children in the 1960s, 68, 69. Well, it happened at Jackson State, May 1970. There's a memorial on campus, and I won't reach for, maybe we'll talk about this a little bit next week. I'm gonna get back to Ed Temple under the time we have today. But I'm mentioning that because these guys were tricked to come to Tennessee State. In a minute, we're gonna see what that meant for the life of Ed Temple, who spent the rest of his life at that university, albeit under different circumstances, but created something that Deion Sanders could coach another 150,000 years and never come close to touch the hem of the garment of a John Cheney, of a Vivian Stringer, of an Ed Temple. And that's not a critique of Coach Sanders. Wish him every good thing in life. Please understand that. It's not a critique of him. It's a different question. This man is not the issue. He's symptomatic of something else. The social structure frames us in a way that not only does not advance us, but flies in the face of the momentum of our memory of why we did athletics in the beginning. Going on, he says, well, Ed Temple writes, when we got there, the track program couldn't go anywhere but up because there wasn't any. We didn't even have any scholarships, just work aids. I'd never even had a black teacher or been in an all-black situation before coming south. I'm going to tell you that some of them guys that came to play for Jackson State that are now going to transfer into the transfer portal, and I see that the coach of Mississippi Valley State is leaving. In fact, y'all know, you know what he did. I went and got one of my favorite books and reread it again. The History of the Mississippi Teachers Association. Cleopatra Davenport Thompson, who was on the faculty at Jackson State for years. I don't know how many of them ball players even heard that name, even though there's a building on campus, the education building named for Cleopatra Thompson, Dr. Thompson, who, by the way, is in the Alcorn State, her undergrad alma mater, Hall of Fame for playing basketball. Anyway, went back and looked. I wonder how many of those young players were introduced to the momentum of memory of where they were from, because they didn't go down there for that. They went down there to play ball. But since you're here, let's look at this Jackson State massacre. Let's go over to the Margaret Walker Center just this afternoon. I'm not just talking about dressing right and going to class and not wearing shower shoes. No, since we're here, let's be here. Let's be here. Now I'm going to Colorado. Y'all going? My mind's telling me no. I'm not going. And it ain't just the big leg girls in Mississippi. I think that's what the younger Sanders is like. I got a girlfriend, man. You think I am Trevor Noah? But anyway, the point is that it ain't just that. Now you got something in your mind. You're 18 years old. How the hell are you supposed to know? But you might pick up on something that says, I think I'm going to stay here because I can get to the league from anywhere. And I love you, brother. I'm going to stay in touch with you. But I think I want to stay here. Why? Because that afternoon we spent over there at Margaret Walker Center, I was reading through this. I was thinking, I came down here to play ball. Anyway, let me go on. Temple says, he says, in Pennsylvania, He said, I've never even had a black teacher or been in an all-black situation before coming south. In Pennsylvania, there were just 6 blacks in our graduating class of 200. We weren't used to the back of the bus and side door in the theater routine either. We had just been took. And even when the track program was developed, we didn't have any big-time competition. We just competed against other all-black schools. Oh, sound familiar? So this is a long time ago. I knew Ed Temple. Yeah, 1983, when I came to Tennessee State, Ed Temple, his wife was running the post office. And the man was coaching Olympic level athletes, the only coach to lead the Olympic track team for the United States in 2 consecutive Olympics, 1960, where Wilma Rudolph won all the medals, and 1964, where Tiger Bells went and took all the rest of the damn medals. And he would have been the one to do three coaches. He was the coach for the team in 1980, and then the United States boycotted the Olympics. And the last of his Tiger Bells to go sweep a bunch of medals, of course, Chandler Cheeseborough is the coach now at Tennessee State. Let's keep going. My man say, let's think. He says, I've always figured that things happen for a purpose. Sounds familiar. So I settled down and decided to make the best of a bad situation. I chose to major in physical education and sociology and work toward that goal. In my junior year, I met my future wife, Charlie B. Miss Temple. She writes chapter 2. They go back and forth in physiology class, and we just eased on into dating. He says, when I graduated in 1950, I sent out several letters applying for a coaching position in either football or basketball. One of the first teams I coached in Nashville was a group of Church of Christ ministers. He goes on, he says he won that summer league. And then that summer, he says the Tennessee State coach accepted a position with a university in Virginia. And he had in turn recommended to the college president that they make me the track coach. What time is it? Okay, we got enough time to do this. TSU President Walter Davis suggested the great Walter Strother Davis, who's a legend at Tennessee State, but wait till you hear how this happened. This is important now because a lot of the conversation this past week is about Coach Prime put half his salary in, he put his money in, he brought all the fields, he did all the stuff, he brought his friends in, he did all his sacrifice, and look what all he did for Jackson State. Remember, a man never carried a clipboard, to quote Urias. And he became a winning head coach in two straight years, got the SWAC championship. South Carolina State had something for them boys. I don't know what's going to happen this weekend in Atlanta, coming up weekend with North Carolina Central, who knows. But the point is that out of that, he was able to parlay that into the place he wanted, which is on the way to another place he wanted, maybe the SEC, which is the way to another place he wants, which is the NFL. He was never going to be there. But the point for a long time, but my point is that, yeah, he put all his money in. He didn't put all his money in because he got plenty of money, but he put a lot of his money in. That's a great sacrifice on the way to somewhere else. Ed Temple goes on and says, this guy who hired him, Walter Davis, he says he suggested, the president of this university, he suggested that I go to graduate school and get my master's. I wonder if that happened. Anyway, and in the meantime, I could work full-time in the campus post office. Although I had fully intended to become a football or basketball coach, I began coaching the men's and women's track team. This is the most decorated coach in the history of American Olympics. And he did it with black women. And he's going to be a football basketball coach to the president of the university. He said, look, you should go back and get your master's. And you work in post office while you're doing it. All right. President Davis was broad-minded enough to provide a women's program. But if he had had any idea that it would surpass football, he wouldn't have turned it loose. Now, here's where the turn comes. In fact, later in his book, Coach Temple said, if I had had to coach men, I probably would have quit. And men don't listen. He said, women may not listen either, but I've been doing it so long now that I'm just used to it. In fact, he lived his whole life surrounded by women. He and his wife had a daughter and a son, but he spent his life surrounded by women, black women. Trevor, you're right, brother. You're right. You're right now. So listen to yourself. All right. He said, I took President Davis's advice, and with a steady paycheck coming in, CB and I were married. CB wanted to move to Pennsylvania just to get out of Tennessee. She was from the rural South Tennessee. I mean, Temple writes, she was really going to see the world, but I have always said that I'm a Pennsylvanian by birth and a Tennessean by choice. Remember when Dion came in? So I'm going to Mississippi. I was like, okay. But mine, he said, she just told the people, man. Anyway, my family couldn't understand it until they visited down there and fell in love with the place. They had even considered retiring there. He said, in my new coaching duties, I didn't know the first thing about coaching women. All I could remember was once seeing a group of Harrisburg girls running an annual Sunday school meet in Pennsylvania. Later on, they won everything, pen relays, everything. I suppose they were ahead of their time, but I didn't pay too much attention to track then. Says, let me go on. During this time, I began reading in the magazines about an Olympic sprinter named May Fags. She had been on the 1948 Olympic team and held the national 220 title. I thought, why not go first class? So I sent a telegram to New York asking her to come to TSU. She's an Olympic. She already in the Olympics, May Fag in the Olympics. He said, why not go first class? So the idea of audacity, that ain't new, coach. The momentum of memory. You can't compete for these. She's an Olympic champ. He sent a telegram to New York City. He says, as it turned out, New York University and Tuskegee both wanted her, too. Wait, New York, NYU and Tuskegee, them two ain't on the same. He writes, she chose Tennessee State, sight unseen, because it was closer than Alabama to her home in New York, and NYU wouldn't offer her anything. Remember, this is before Title IX. He got a whole chapter on that. He got one chapter called From Title I, and then the next chapter is called To Title IX. Where did I get to that? Oh, thank you, bruh. You got us thinking. After accomplishing this feat, we almost lost her because we could only offer her a work aid, and she wasn't used to the South or segregation. To add insult to injury, the school refused to put out the money. The Amateur Athletic Union would have paid half of the expenses to buy Fags a train ticket to go and defend her national title. The school wouldn't even pay for her to go defend her. She's an Olympic runner. However, for some reason, she stuck with us and became the spark that set off the Tiger Bell program. She, more than anyone else, taught me about coaching women. Earl Clanton, the college's public relations man, named the Tiger Bells, but May Fags is the one I consider the mother of the Tiger Bells. She was one more stick of dynamite. She also had the experience and poise, and she willingly passed it on to the others. And she was only one of us who knew anything at all about running indoor track. I want to mention here in terms of Tiger Bells, one of the things I love about this is they were not the Lady Tigers. And Tiger Bell, Southern Belle, this is why he did it. Clinton did it the way he did. But let's be clear. You have a lot of, one of the traditions of HBCUs up until now, again, are we black-based versus the white schools, is to give the women's teams their own identities. Tiger Bells, track team, Tiger Gems, basketball team, not Lady. What the hell? Anyway, let me show you a couple pictures right quick. Just right quick. Here go Lucinda Williams, Margaret Matthews, Isabel Daniels, and Willie B. White, and Wilma Rudolph. He said, I believed in them getting dressed to go. Here go the Tiger Bells as undergrads, getting ready to go beat somebody's ass. But they dressed. Here's Wilma down here. Here go the other teams. Here goes, Temple when he was in college at the top. And at the bottom, here's the first national championship team, 1955. I would go on. Here's May Fags down with Isabel Daniels, National AAU Championships. May Fags first. She would get up and say, okay, who's coming in second? Because I'm coming in first. Tennessee State. Right? People say, well, this is a long time ago. There, of course, Wilma Rudolph. You see Wilma Rudolph there at the top, went in there. Here at the top here are his parents with their grandchildren, son and daughter. We could go on. Oh, yeah, here they are at the White House. Here's Kennedy. And here's Wilma Rudolph and her mother there. Lyndon Johnson sitting there, Ed Temple. Anyway, let me go on because I'm going to be up against the clock. I'm raising all these things to talk about this. But I'm putting it in the context of track and field because, again, this ain't no revenue-bearing sport. And what Temple writes in here, he says, at this HBCU, Tennessee State was considered, I hate to say it this way, but Dwight wrote it this way in The Will to Win. He said it was the Notre Dame of black colleges. Independent, wasn't in the SWAC, not MEAC, not CIAA, any of the in black college formations. It was independent. It made its own schedule. And it would run up these records. In fact, the coach of Tennessee State, Big John Merritt, came from Jackson State. That rivalry is there. So when Prime's like, you got to get out this Southern Heritage Classics. Yeah, the contract is trash. You got to renegotiate. But bruh, you don't understand some of these rivalries. And guess what? Tennessee State was playing Jackson State for decades before you showed up. So if you think all these people in this stand came because you here, some of them did come because you here. But they was coming anyway. Alabama State, Alabama A&M fills up to 40, 50,000 people in the stadium because that's their rivalry. You understand? We talked about that last week. I'm going to get too deep into that because I want to get into these other pieces where you see these parallels. Again, the momentum of memory. What are we doing? We're looking back into the momentum of memory to think about this. And again, the reason I say that Coach Temple, who lived until 2016, people say, well, it's a long time ago. No. When Barry shows you that genealogy is alive, it's not something you abandon. Let's continue. He says, let me go here. So he's got May Fags. He says, the next year, Pat Monsanto, a teammate of May Fags, joined us, and she excelled in field events. In 1954, the Nationals were held at my hometown of Harrisburg. We made a good showing and lost the meet by only 5 or 6 points. My parents put us all up and fed us. It was the only way we could make the trip. They had no money. It's before Title IX. Women's programs were an afterthought, if that. And Davis and them at Tennessee State, the president, was considered progressive because they had a women's team at all, but they didn't give him any scholarships. He had no scholarships for these women. The only thing they could get is grant and aid, need-based aid, and even that was short. For years, Ed Temple, after he got scholarship money, said, I'd give out 10 scholarships, and they're year-to-year scholarships. If it was me, I'd make them semester to semester. Why? Because I want to see what you're about. My job is to get you to graduate. You are first a lady. He says lady. So let's say woman. You first a woman, second a student, third an athlete. Now, you know, Coach Sanders could say that, but it would be the rhetorical ethic. Because if word was bond, we see how you moving. Ain't none of them boys going to Colorado won't graduate, and you consider that a success. You're going to be a blackface version of that plantation runner at Lexington, Kentucky in basketball. What's his name? John Calipari? John Calipari at Kentucky, who will tell them when he come in, look, I want you to be one and done. So I told your mama and them, we're going to make you rich. It's one of the reasons John Cheney ain't like him. Well, John Cheney said he got along, but remember we talked about that. I was at Temple that night that they played, UMass played Temple, and John Cheney came in the back of the press conference, Calipari up front talking, and John Cheney came and said, I'll kill you. So that's North Philly talking. I'll kill you. Boys, players had to pull him off. Yes, sir. Anyway, so Tuskegee had the team. Tennessee State then gets a team. Now watch this. Let me go very quickly again. Here's chapter 3 from Title 1. Chapter 2, his wife writes, which is a beautiful title, but I'm looking at the clock and I don't want to go too much further. From Title 1, page 29. Only the pure in heart. Coach Temple, Ed Temple. Temple writes, by 1967, my girls had competed in 3 Olympics and won 16 medals. So I skipped over all them Olympics they won. When Rudolph, that's when Muhammad Ali won the medal. And he didn't want them dancing. He said these kids, because I had one that would just dance, I sent her home. He said, no, they don't give out medals for queen of dancing. You got to go home. These are Olympic level athletes winning all the medals. He says, by 1967, my girls had competed in 3 Olympics and had won 16 medals. I had coached 2 Olympic teams. The Tiger Bells had won 20 medals in 3 Pan American Games, and we had won 12 national titles. We had done everything you could ask to do on the track, and we still didn't have any scholarships. He had no scholarships. I'm here to make you think. Let's think, bro. If that weren't insulting enough, we were working out of one of the poorest facilities in the country. If any other team at any other school in the nation had accomplished all that we had, they would have had unlimited everything. So we paid our dues for 17 years before we ever got the first scholarship in 1967. After 11 more years and 3 more Olympics, we finally got a decent track facility in 1978. Talk about Title IX. Shoot, we started in Title 1. Now watch this. That's abuse. Okay, it changed at Tennessee State. It should have changed much earlier than that. This is not uncritical. We ain't celebrating poverty. But what we're also not doing is trying to aspire to be a blackface version of white. Because what the issue is, the question is, what are you there for? Oh, this book is, let's keep going. He says, my very first track team consisted of about 2 girls and 3 or 4 boys and a $64 budget. Now, you don't get much lower than a $64 a year athletic budget. And that was supposed to cover equipment, track shoes, uniforms, travel, everything. That year, we didn't go no place. Then he goes on and said how the track was on a cow pasture. He said eventually we got a $1,500 budget, but we had to stay at that level for about 10 years. That's after they got a $300 budget. Before that, he says, with that kind of pocket change, we didn't go any place for meets except Tuskegee and Alabama State. I had to be the chauffeur, coach, trainer, and manager till Earl Clanton came along and helped me out. They got a $1,500 budget. In 1956, he says the Nationals were in Philadelphia and the Olympic trials were going to be just 1 week later in Washington, D.C. We couldn't afford to make both trips. These are world champions. Couldn't afford to make both trips. But our team was so good, we couldn't afford not to make them. So we made 2 trips in one. Earl Clinton and I stuck out with the train in 2 station wagons. We just stopped long enough for gas, restrooms, and hamburgers. When the packed lunches ran out, we won the junior and senior championships. Look at that. In Philly, y'all know where that was. Y'all know about Philadelphia. You know, the Penn Relays, you know, the University of Pennsylvania Stadium, they got a picture of it. They won both them, then drove straight over to Harrisburg, where we stayed at my parents' home until time to leave on Friday morning for the drive to Washington for the Olympic trials. We placed 6 Tiger Bells on the Olympic team. See, it's one thing, come in with the flash, the dash, the boom, 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 get these cats come in 1-2 years, play some ball, fill up the stadium, and then bounce to the other place where they want the minstrelsy and don't realize they're not getting the swag. You left that in Jackson. And I'm mad at you, bro. I'm just saying, you are a disruptor, and that's what you do. Go with God. It's a beautiful thing to watch you in your element. But see, that's very different than what we talk about. What is the purpose remains undefined until we gather the momentum of memory. Things have changed. Haven't changed enough, but they've changed a lot. But what shouldn't change is the determination. Women, students, athletes. Men, students, athletes. Now, they say that rhetorically, but we know nobody in plantation-style college athletics makes it. In fact, I'm going to end in a second because I could go on with a lot of this, but anyway, and then he got chapter 4 to Title 9. Now they get Title 9. He starts with the language of Title 9 from 1972. He says it doesn't matter which area of sports world you're talking about, high school, college, or international level. The women have always been deprived. It galls you twice as much when you're accomplishing so much, proving yourself, and still have to take a back seat, whether at home or abroad. He says for years, many of our runners came primarily from Georgia. In their segregated schools, the black girls happened to have track and some good coaches, while the white girls played softball. Mississippi, Alabama had programs, while Tennessee didn't have anything, period. He talks about segregation, the Middle Tennessee State Athletic Association, which was the black thing, the integration went away. And he talks about the great black coaches, black women coaches, Miss Marion Perkins Morgan from Georgia, who did work, Nell Jackson, Terry Crawford, all these people who helped him. He says, don't expect $100,000 while you just sit there competing with nearby colleges on an intramural basis. If a school sinks that much into a program, the administration and the alumni will expect some national championship teams or some national championship individuals in certain events. He says, so if you fight and get a budget, don't expect just to get the budget and not do anything. He's saying, I know how these things work. I didn't have nothing and we won all the championships. And we came back, still didn't have nothing. He said, so if they give you something, if you fight for and get something, you got to do something. And in that respect, him and Sanders on the same page. But that's in addition to the core. What is your purpose? I have no doubt in my mind that Deion Sanders, like a whole lot of, he got children, he got sons and daughters. You want to help these young people grow. Are they going to grow out there in that space? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I know they ain't going to have no black faculty. I know they ain't going to have no black tradition. I know they're going to have the momentum of white memory. So who knows? Because they do have family. You're not going out there for that. So again, but the question we have is whether anybody like that comes or goes through black colleges, should that diminish or should that divert or should that distract us? Because when people like that show up, they put you at the crossroads. You got to make a choice. We arguing about the wrong things. He should have stayed, should have go. Man, go with God. Glad you came, glad you left. Hey, it's beautiful. What is our purpose? Look at what Deion Sanders did for Jackson State. Look at what Jackson State did for Deion Sanders. This is what black colleges do. He says, now let me go to this other point, though, I wanted to make on here, because he's talking about competing with the white schools. And I think I might have, chapter 5, rounding up the horses. Newspaper reporter Jeff Hanna once asked me, Coach, with all the schools opening up and getting girls, white schools now, not just getting girls now, getting the boys, getting the football players, getting the basketball players, with all the schools opening up, do you feel that you can get the top girls? Or do you think they will go to another school like the University of California, Southern Cal, or U of Tennessee, with all of them offering scholarships? Do you think you can still get the caliber of material like Tyus, Randolph, McGuire, and all of those? I told him I didn't see why not. However, at the time, I hadn't really thought of it in that respect. I decided that perhaps he had a point. Even coaches sometimes fall into a rut. And I, for a while, was beginning to get into one. In thinking about this, I set a goal and said to myself, all right, I'm going to go out and check. I'm going after Kathy McMillan. I knew everybody in the country was after her. She had at least 25 scholarship offers. She was a tremendous jumper and had great potential. I had an annual recruiting budget of $260. So I had to make one long trip to see the 3 girls that I was interested in coaching. I drove along in my car and ended up slipping and sliding all over several states in rain, sleet, and snow before I could return home. McMillan lived in Rayford, North Carolina, and that was to be my first stop. Talk about small. The place is off of the map. You have to go 30 miles away to get a McDonald's or a place to stay. As it worked out, Tennessee State was where McMillan wanted to come. UCLA and UT had magnificent facilities to offer. And at the time, we had the poorest. But here was a girl who overlooked all of that and wanted to come where the program was. I didn't plan to change very much in McMillan's training because she had the good fortune to have an excellent coach, William Colson, in high school. Whatever he taught her to get her to jump 22 feet, I ain't changing. Now he goes into recruiting. He said, I'm going to begin to knock this down. She said, he starts talking about, if you come to Tennessee State, I don't play favorites. I work the hell out of y'all. But we keep our practices under 2 hours. We do this, but you got to be on time. I mean, he's very clear about this. But that, he said, people come and say, I'm the best. Well, you ain't run here yet. And even if you do prove to be the best, you're joining a program where we've had the best when we ain't had nothing. So this is a mutual thing. And woman first, lady first, as he would say, lady first, student second, athlete third. This is, now there are going to be special kind of young people who say, that's where I want to go. They're not going because they're thinking about the Rams or the Cowboys. They're going because they're thinking about that program. I want my name, Woman Rudolph's name, to be said the same breath. Let's go on. He says, as we were coming back from a meet one time, I asked Brenda Fuller why she decided to come to TSU. She replied, well, I just wanted to find out how good I was. I think I'm pretty good, but I wanted to find out once and for all if I really was good. I told her that I liked her attitude. When other girls were competing in the Junior Olympics heard that she was going to Tennessee State, they said, oh, we don't want to go there. No, they work too hard there. She told them that if you're going to become good, you'll have to work. See, we're recruiting with the wrong thing. We're recruiting, well, I don't know. He said, we presently offer 10 track scholarships, and I don't generally carry more than 10 on the track team. More often than not, it's been less. Anybody at school can try out for the team, and many do try. It looks like a stampede on the first day of tryouts. On the second day, there may be a dozen or so still coming out. Sound like my meta-nature class, me, Mario, and Valethia took. It's like 60 people in it the first day. By the end of the semester, it was about 15 people. And Obenga said, I'm taking you for me, Mario, Valethia, and an ancestor now, a brother named Troy Allen. We were his students. On the second day, there may be a dozen or so. By the third day, we usually down to our regular scholarship girls. It's not often, maybe 3 or 4 times in all these years, but occasionally I've had a walk-on that stuck with it. He talks about Kathy Williams, who did that. He says, once in the program, too many want to come up faster right now instead of working up through the ranks for 4 or 5 years. Well, 4 or 5 years is maybe 400 or 500 years now with name, image, and likeness and all this kind of stuff. Again, what is our objective? About to wind this up. He says, I strongly believe in a solid step-by-step building process. This patient, hardworking kind of person is difficult to find, but I feel that there are still some out there. I always tell the freshmen, if they aren't going to make us a program, the program is already made. They might add a chapter to it. That's genealogy. And I'm going to tell you right now, everybody knows that. Everybody knows that at Jackson State. Everybody knows that at Prairie View. Everybody knows that at North Carolina Central. Everybody knows that at Philander Smith. Everybody knows that at University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. And you're not going to be a plantation economy college. You're not going to be one. The question is, what do you want? And I'm loving it. All the track people are in the chat talking. So, Prof, I want to pause there for now because there's a lot more I want to say about this question of institution building and how we frame this around. How does it free us? But I think it can wait till next week. But I wanted to just raise those names because they're very important for us to think about. And Ed Temple gives us a glimpse in what these coaches did.
And instead of fighting and being angry with one another about opinions, let's focus on reclaiming our memory and
Right.
having these discussions around what we know, not what we feel, not what we think, but what was done before and before and before, because there was always a before. We ain't just land here, you know.
That's right.
stand here. So thank you
That's
for connecting the dots and bringing it back and erecting the names of people we have probably never known or forgotten, because it's really important that
yes.
we don't forget. So
Yes. Oh, I should. Let me look at the clock. I know they're gonna come look for me in a minute, but I do. I found something I should have said before. Let me just say this right quick, Prof.
Okay.
Um, he says if certain coaches don't get scholarships, then you hear them saying things like, "quote Well, I don't get a scholarship, and I don't get that type of girl, et cetera, et cetera." He says you can always hide behind that. In my program, there's no hiding place. We got to jump up and get it. That's what it's about. Our program is geared for international competition. We're looking for the world record. We're not looking to hide anywhere. Some of these things are what you're hearing from the women. And they have a lot of men belly aching. Some of these dyed-in-the-wool coaches have even gone with their hats in hand to complain to the president. Their main complaint has been that they worked hard all these years building up a separate program, and they run their programs from the football gate. Remember, Deion Sanders was saying you should take this money, since the football team won, you should get that money in the athletic program. Don't just put it in the general fund. Ed Temple says, as far as this argument goes, how many women pay to go to a football game? I would assume that almost 50% of all the gates in football and basketball are paid by women and girls. If they want to become that technical, why don't they set up two booths? One for all the women who pay to attend the games and one for all the men who pay. Then take up all the money from the women's booth and put it into the women's program. If, as they say, the spectators pay for these athletic programs, then you have to consider the fact that women are also spectators. I realize that this would be ridiculous, but it's no more ridiculous than saying that football pays for all the athletic programs, and football has done it with larger crowds at the football games. Well, women are people too. The first concern, finally, of our educational institutions should be education. Sports should be secondary. The money spent on some of these school programs is a crying shame. $500,000 or $2 million is a load of money. Some of these schools have set up athletic programs as pro camps. If they are that concerned over money, we end with this. Ed Temple says, why don't the pros put some money into it and just go on and call it their training camp? That's from a man who 1,000 years from now, the name will be in the book. I don't know where Dion Sanders' name will be. Maybe it'll be there too. But you come on back with about 3 dozen gold medals and we can have a conversation, bro. That man say, if it's going to be that, why don't the pros just put some money in and call it training camp? So you left an institution and went to a training camp. Go with God, bro. But don't call it education. Anyway, that's from Ed Temple.
Hold that book again. Hold it up so people can see it. The cover. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the cover is just only this is an old beat up copy. I keep my autograph copy somewhere in Texas. It's called Only the Pure in Heart Survive. Ed Temple with B. Lou Carter, forward by Wilma Rudolph. I don't know that it's in print.
Probably not.
but here's the thing. Come on back, Prof. Here's the beautiful thing about it. What we're doing here, again, look, we can do the research. We got a lot of lawyers in here, and you done built a team. Is it open copyright? Where's the Temple family on this? Is somebody, and believe me, every week somebody reaches out and said, Dean Phillips with Tuskegee, he the one told Brian Jones, hey man, you gotta have a conversation with these cats because they're watching. Let's find this copyright. Look, get the Temple family the money. Let's bring it back into print. Is there a digital version? It can narrative lead in there.
We actually are building a library as we speak in narrative, which is the whole point of what we're doing. Also, your class on Monday, is there? Do we have the reading for that? Because I think that'll be in narrative. Okay.
Yes.
Right. The reading will be in narrative for Monday's Africana Studies class. I know you have to go for libation.
Yeah, I'm over for libation.
All right. Love you, Dr. Carr. Thank you.
I love you all. Listen, keep filling up the chat. And those of you on YouTube, please, any name you heard, any place you heard, we're writing this thing together. This is the point you made at the beginning. This is the through line. Do you realize this disrupts everything? Don't wait on these academics to go pay themselves and give each other awards, tell your story. You tell your own story. Next week, we're going to finish up on this trilogy. We got more to say because they're all going to be down in Alabama for the Celebration Bowl. And there's a whole nother thing we'll get into. Love you.
Love you too. Bye. And family, see y'all on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We keep it going. But let's not fight and bicker and say somebody's wrong and somebody's right. We're all right. We're here reclaiming our memory, reclaiming our time. That's the purpose of being here. I love you. See everyone next week.